Good morning, it's DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Well, for local basketball fans, last night was a downer. University of Utah women's team knocked out of the NCAA tournament in the second round, beaten at Gonzaga 77-66. Alyssa Peely did all she could. She had 35 points. She dominated the first quarter. The Utes had the lead, but Gonzaga took over in the second. And really, the Utes never had a chance after that. It was all Gonzaga the rest of the way. Utes with a late rally to cut a massive deficit down to 7 points, but they really couldn't get any closer, and Gonzaga's on to the Sweet 16. And for the Utes, it's all over. For the Jazz, it has been all over for a while now, but there are still games to play. So they got beat again. Dallas beat them. Again, tie game going to the fourth quarter. Same thing we saw against Oklahoma City, Minnesota. They hang around for three quarters, but they're not good enough to win in the fourth quarter. The fact they're playing so many young guys, rookies, that's probably a contributing factor. They're not good enough. They're not experienced enough, and they get beat in those situations. They've now lost 17 out of the last 20. I don't know if we're going to find anyone, let alone very many, if we're going to find any other team in the NBA, in NBA history, that has gone 16-4 in one stretch in the year and 3-17 in another stretch in the same year. Now, it's probably happened somewhere out there. There's probably a really good team that had massive injuries that fell apart. So it may have happened one time because of that. But, man, this is a weird season. The Jazz had a stretch where they won 16 out of 20, and they had a stretch where they lost 17 out of 20. Makes no sense. Let's get to the best of the Jazz postgame.
It's your Jazz recap here on DJ and PK 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The Jazz lost last night to the Mavericks, 115-105. The Jazz did get a good performance from Lauri Markkanen, 34 points, 7 rebounds. John Collins with a double-double, 21 points, 11 rebounds. But Dallas too much in the fourth quarter, outscoring the Jazz 27-17. Luka Doncic, triple-double, 29 points, 13 assists, 12 rebounds. Kyrie Irving with 27 points on 10 of 21 shooting. He was also 4 of 9 from 3. Let's get to the post-game sound and start things off with Jazz head coach Will Hardy.
I was really proud of the team's carryover defensively from halftime to the second half. In the first half, we gave up 40 paint points. In the second half, it was only 16. It was a big focus for us at halftime. We needed to execute our coverage better, stop the ball a little bit higher, and have some more physicality with our rotations, and I thought the team did that. On the other side of the ball, it was the opposite story. I thought the first half was, really encouraging offensively. We had 18 assists. I thought the ball was flying around. Generated a lot of good looks from three, and scored a bunch of points in the first half. And that's who we want to be on that side of the ball. We don't want it to be about one person. We want it to be moving with pace up the floor, getting to our spacing quickly, and then trying to play, multiple actions offensively to create some good shots with ball movement. And I thought we did that. In the second half, offensively, I felt like we gave into fatigue. And sort of went on autopilot, and I thought the ball started sticking a little bit. Our spacing wasn't as crisp. We weren't sprinting to screen as well, and the decisions weren't being made as quickly. And so our offense stagnated, which hurt us in the second half. Now it's about putting that first half of offense and the second half of defensive focus and seeing if we can put that together for 48 minutes going into our next game.
Lauri has just one shot in the fourth quarter, right? You mentioned, the ball isn't popping as much as you want it to, but do you want him to, call for the ball in that situation to try to, get more of his own shot? Or what do you want from him in that kind of?
Yeah, I want Lauri to be far more demonstrative against the switch. We talked about it at halftime. There was a possession in the first half where there was a switch in a pick and roll, and he had Kyrie Irving on him, and he let Keontae shoot a hezzy three over, I think it was P.J. Washington. And I want Lauri to be demonstrative, trying to look for those opportunities. We've worked on it a lot. We've talked about it a lot. And teams are going to switch him a lot. So when the game slows down like that, going to the nail, the elbow, that free throw line area, even the mid-post, is really going to be important for him. We ran a couple of elbow ISOs at the end of the third quarter for him in the bonus. And I think in those situations, he knows that because we're calling it, it's his time to think about himself first and then make reads for his teammates. The next part of his evolution is in the flow of the game, recognizing mismatches and demanding the ball in those moments for sure.
How do you, kind of bottle, the things that you do well in pockets or over a period of stretch in the game, and just try to bottle it over 48 minutes so that you guys can see tangible results on the scoreboard?
Yeah, we've got to, continue to work on it at practice, continue to show what it's supposed to look like on film. And then everybody in our locker room has to take it upon themselves to not give in to fatigue. I personally feel like fatigue shows up far more mentally than it does physically. And we're playing a bunch of people, and nobody really is playing super heavy minutes for our team. We play as a group on both ends of the floor. And so we've got to find a way, as the game goes on, we hit a tough moment to not just give in. The energy that our team was playing with on the offensive end in the first half was inspiring. Like, that's what I want it to look like. That's what we want it to look like. That's what they want it to look like. And in the second half, I thought, credit to Dallas, I thought they dictated the tempo of the game. Luka and Kyrie are very, very good about doing that. But when we get the ball, they don't get to dictate the tempo that we play with. And I felt like we were just a little bit slow getting down the court. Like, you could just see it in our body language a little bit, us moving down the floor. And that's going to take, a lot of effort and attention from our staff and from our team. Again, we've got a lot of young players playing more minutes than they're used to. And 48 minutes is a long time. And I think that we're not in a situation where we can rely on anybody else. Like, we have to find it within ourselves in those moments. Like, we don't have one person that we just throw the ball to and go, okay, I'm going to go over here and rest for a minute while you do your thing. We need all 5 players participating and doing their jobs on every possession for us to create good shots.
You talked pregame about Taylor's growth offensively, specifically against Luka. How do you think he did tonight?
I think he did okay. He had some really good moments. And his length showed up. Obviously, Luka didn't shoot the ball great from 3. 10 for 24 from the floor is a pretty valiant effort on Luka for sure. But I think there were some possessions where Taylor got opened up a little bit. So we talked about pregame. Like, you have to be perfect when you guard Luka with your foot positioning. We let him get back to his right hand a few times and get into his body. Went for a couple of shot fakes, which, that takes time and repetition. Luka's one of the best players in the league, and so I get it. Like, you react when he looks like he's going to shoot, especially when we're preaching contesting and playing hard and all those things. But I think all in all, Taylor did a pretty good job. It's not as good as we want it to be. It's not as good as he wants it to be. But I think that Taylor is where he should be right now in terms of, the arc of his development. He's gotten a lot of really valuable minutes against good players. And, tonight was another night where he got a lot of opportunity to guard a really special player.
The data shows that the refs are calling kind of fewer shooting fouls over the last few weeks, few months of the season than they were at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a conversation with the team about kind of what to expect from the referees? I thought it was a little bit different than – I thought tonight was a good example of that.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to preach from the very beginning of the season that, don't expect anything. Don't ask for anything. I'll handle the refs. I want them to try to keep level heads and play. The physicality of the game, if it's changed, if the whistle has changed, all we ask for is consistency on both ends of the floor. I didn't feel like tonight it was inconsistent in terms of, like, we weren't getting something Dallas was getting. But, because we aren't necessarily the biggest team in the league. If some more physicality is going to be allowed, we have to rise to that challenge. I think we've got to continue as a team to be more physical on the defensive end. But offensively, you know, outside of the last month or couple of weeks that you're referring to, you know, I've been telling our team a lot, like, we have a lot of young players. Like, Keontae, you're a rookie. You shouldn't expect to get a good whistle at all. Young players have to earn that. And, you know, Lowry, I think, is somebody that, you know, it's gotten better this year, but I do think that in terms of, like, guys that have been all-stars in the last 2 seasons, I think that, you know, because Lowry is big and strong and doesn't try to bait fouls very much, sometimes he can get a tough whistle, but he does a pretty good job of playing through it. I do think that it's improved for him this season. But, yeah, I try to tell the team that I'll talk to the refs, and I'd like for them to just try to stay focused on what's next.
There's Jazz head coach Will Hardy. Let's now move on to the players and hear from Lauri Markkanen.
From a wins and losses standpoint.
Everybody's got something to play for. Yeah, we might not make a deep run in the playoffs this year, but everybody's got something to play for, and you got to find it individually and find it, like I talked about a couple of weeks ago, like just setting the standard of how we want to play. We come out and play hard, and we play together, and then individually everybody's got that pride, and so I think you always find something that you can improve and get better on and keep going.
How long does it take, whether you're sick or injured, when you're out and you miss games, how many games before you're like, oh, I actually have to like
It depends on how many practices you get. You can do all the running and stuff, but if you don't get too many live reps at this point in the year at practice, you know, it's just there's not a lot of playing, so you try to play against coaches and stuff like that. So me personally, I had a couple practices, maybe probably played 5 once, so it takes a little bit longer personally for me, but obviously you just try to do, there's nothing like the game reps, so no matter how long you play in practice, workout, whatever, the first game it'll feel a little funny, but that's how you get it off. Just go under, play someone else than your teammates and coaches, and get the game reps, and that's how you get out of it.
There's Lauri Markkanen. Lauri last night, 10 of 19, 6 of 9 from 3, 34 points and 7 boards in the loss. Let's now hear from Taylor Hendricks.
We've pretty much got to be more vocal amongst each other. You know, we kept it close. You know, I think it was tied going into the fourth, and then you know it kind of got away from us. Guys got a little bit tired, but you know, just communicating and just telling each other like to lock in going into that fourth quarter, because that's been our Achilles heel like the last couple games. So yeah, just pretty much that.
You were able to hold Luka to 9 points in the first half. What did you learn and apply from the last game against the Mavs?
Just how smart he is. He's going to try and use his body. I don't feel like he's more athletic than me or faster than me, but right now I feel like he's smarter than me. So just his way to draw fouls and things like that is something I was watching last time I guarded him. So even though he still got me a couple times, I feel like I did a lot better.
Will talked about kind of like opening up your hips on him and trying to make sure that you stay in front. Like, what are you focusing on in terms of footwork when it comes to guarding him, and how did you feel you did tonight on that?
Really just shading him to his left hand. Okay. I feel like, you know, when he drives, he's going to drive right, and when he goes left, he's looking for the step back. So, like, they're pretty much just positioning my body so he'd want to go left.
Gotcha. How hard is it to not be the first one on the floor against him?
Extremely hard. Like, you literally have to think about it every second, because, like, even if you're a little off and he goes for the pump fake, you're going to – and I feel like I'm a shot blocker, so I'm going to try and block the shot. So, you know, it's tough to stay down.
That's Taylor Hendricks, the Jazz rookie. The Jazz fall to Dallas 115-105. Up next, the Jazz take on the Spurs at Delta Center on Wednesday night. That game will tip off at 7 o'clock. Pregame coverage begins at 6.
There's the best of the Jazz postgame. When we come back, former BYU coach Steve Cleveland talking NCAA tournament and offseason plans for the locals. Stay with us. DJ and PK is proudly presented by Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer for 18 years in a row. Steve Cleveland joined us in yesterday's show around the 8 o'clock hour for your early risers. Here's Steve with PK and I, his thoughts on the NCAA tournament ousters and where the local teams go from here. So the Sweet 16 is set. There are no locals involved, but Utah State won a game for the first time in a couple of decades. Now they're probably going through another coaching change, but for Aggie fans, a moment to savor. PK and I have been debating how much can this be replicated. They've hit on 3 coaches in a row, 3 coaches, 6 years, who all succeeded and moved on and got jobs. Can they hit again? Should they even be worrying about that yet, or should they just, soak in the tournament win and worry about who the administration hires later on?
Yeah, I think that things you control and things you can't control. And for the fans, I think you just enjoy a great year and a big win over TCU. That was really good, and they did it easy. I mean, they kind of took it to them. So Osabuor and Johnson, Martinez all played well, and it was just a great win. In terms of a new coach or whatever the circumstances are, those aren't things that anybody can really worry about other than ADs and presidents of the school. And it says a lot about Utah State, a lot about the selection of coaches that they've tapped into. All have been successful. And that's just kind of the nature of what college basketball is. When the coach gets hot, there's opportunities. And I suspect that whether it's now or, I don't see Utah State taking a dip here. I mean, Osabuor coming back, Johnson coming back. They're going to have a nice group, and with all the things that can happen in the transfer portal, you can stay pretty good for a long time. So congratulations to them on a great year. Obviously, they ran into a buzzsaw against Purdue, which you would expect. I didn't think that would be like a 40-point game. But that being said, you just put it behind you and realize that we've had a great year. We won a tournament game, and let's get ready for next year, whether it's a new coach or not. So very congratulations to USU and all that they've done and all the guys. They had a great year.
How much did your heart sink with the Cougars?
That was difficult. I mean, the minute, even as poorly as they played at times, I mean, it's a tie game with 145, and they had, they've had a lot of experience. It's not like they haven't had close games, had to come back to win. I mean, they had every variety of a game, late game situations. But it just was a team that just struggled the whole night. And I know Duquesne did well, and they're hot. They're 5-0 in the postseason, first win. We know all the stories about their coach and about LeBron and all the things that are happening. But congratulations to them. But I just felt like, Khalifa I don't know his health issues and what the circumstances are, but he goes 0 for 6, 0 for 2, plays 16 minutes. He's an impactful guy in that team. Waterman kind of non-existent in that game at 3-2. And even Dallin Hall, who played well and had 4 steals, and he won 11, 6, and 2. Most of those points he scored in the last few minutes. And I'm glad he did, because it made it a really competitive game. But Nell with 2, 3, and 1. Saunders 4, 3, and 4. I mean, Robinson played well. Johnson, 16 rebounds. That's incredible. He played well. But it wasn't a great team effort. And that being said, with all the experience they had and the talent that BYU has, that game was still tied and very winnable. But it is disappointing. And they got to move on. It hurts a while. You sit on that for 2 or 3 weeks and realize, hey, I know the coaches, they're just jumping right back into recruiting, getting ready for next year and all the things you got to do. That most of those guys will hit the road and try to get themselves better. I think the 2 biggest questions, the biggest question for me is Jackson Robinson going to stay, or is he going to come back? He played well. He's obviously 8 for 15 from the 3-point line. I know he went through senior night, but he is eligible to play, and if he stays, that's a big piece with the guys they have coming in. So I think going forward, I think BYU is going to continue to be very competitive in that league. But all you remember for a while is a very, very difficult, tough loss against a higher seeded team.
There were a couple things in that game that I thought were just glaring. One, and you kind of covered this, Waterman, Khalifa, and Traore combined 5 of 21. If any of us had known the three of them were going to be a combined 5 of 21, and those aren't guys, who are going to shoot a lot of threes. There are only 5 3-pointers in there. If we knew that, we knew they'd be in trouble. And also the way they started each half. That just screams that a lot of this is mental, that this isn't physical, it isn't tactical, you're giving up a 10-0 run, you only score 2 points in 4.5 minutes to open the second half. That just screams that everybody's tight and the pressure's eating you up because you're better than that. You're now in one of the power leagues, and Duquesne's the little guy. The Cougars aren't the little guy anymore trying to beat UConn or Syracuse or Cincinnati, one of the teams that you drew or they've drawn over time. And yet, man, the first few minutes of each half were just a mess.
No, you're absolutely right. And here's the thing. BYU, you're spot on with the fact that, here they are. They've come from a big-time conference. They've been the darlings of the Big 12. They've surprised everybody. They've played with such swagger and shooting the three ball. But you cannot dismiss the fact that when you get into an NCAA tournament game on a neutral court, it's just so different. And these young men aren't any different than others that have gone through this where, a lower-seeded team got upset. And I think don't take anything away from Duquesne. Duquesne had nothing to lose. They're playing for a variety of things for a coach and his wife and 48 years, a 47-year wait, and hadn't had a win in the NCAA tournament since 1969. So I would say that in that game that Duquesne was probably more relaxed, more settled, on a mission. They played under a different set of emotions, and BYU, who had surprised the world, had kind of been the darlings for a long time in the Big 12, had some just amazing wins, and they did it so differently than everybody else has done it with how they ran offensively and what they did defensively. But it was pretty obvious that Khalifa and Foose and Waterman were just one of them. The game that went on the line. And listen, I love Foose, and you don't put anything on one guy in a game, but I'd have just liked to see Foose, instead of just settling for that little jump hook at a really, really important time in the game, to just kind of go at him and try to get to the free throw line. That was the one that just kind of took my breath away when I was watching the game. No, and listen, that's not Bruce's problem in terms of nobody lost this game individually. This is a collective effort where they just got beat by a team that was more aggressive, more confident, had the swagger when they kept going, and they had leads, and BYU just hung in there and stepped in there, and again with a minute and a half or so, it's tied up. But you can't have games where your perimeter guys have been seeing Saunders. Man, I love Saunders, and he has played well, competes. But you needed 10 or 12 points from him. Nell's a guy that averages 10 or 11 points. You needed that, and then between Khalifa and Foose, you're expecting about 20 to 25 points a game because that's what they did, but not that day. And so it hurts. It is very difficult, but I don't know. We'll see what happens as Robinson comes back, and then with the guys they have, and I see them being really competitive again in the Big 12. But when these things sting, I've gone through this, and it's just there's a hurt there that you can't describe, and you just keep busy. The easy thing for the coaches is that they just got to immediately jump right into recruiting and on the road, and you kind of are able to kind of focus on other things to take the pain away. The players sit there just kind of like, oh man, and they can't wait for when are we going to practice again? We want to get this bitter taste out of our mouth. But great year, really, really tough loss, and hats off to Duquesne. Kind of a magical postseason. What they did in the postseason, going 5-0, and eventually they got beat as well. But fun to watch these games.
Putting together a roster is like a big puzzle. All the pieces have to fit. So from that perspective, they've got some recruits coming in. This Chandler kid, he's as hyped as pretty much any local recruit that I've heard in a good while. We'll see how it plays out. And they got a kid from Idaho, a big guy coming in, and all that stuff. So other than that, as you incorporate these new guys, what do you think this team needs to take that next step? Because it's not like they're that far away.
No, they're not. And the next step, I think you anytime you finish in the top half of the Big 12, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know that they're ever going to do better than that. I don't know. I mean, that league's not going away, and they were certainly in most games and right to the end. So when I look at the needs of this team, I think the thing, first of all, that jumps out to me is having another point guard. And Dallin, listen, he's one of my very favorite. I know him personally. He's one of my very favorite people. He's a great competitor. But I think you need a second point guard, and even if he's a combo type guard, because Dallin had to carry a big load, and 11, 6, and 2, and 4 steals. There's, hey, I'm not suggesting that we need a new point guard. That's not the case. I think you need to add to your depth, and I think that's something that they need. First thing, I think that Chandler is a young man. I've seen a little bit of film on him and talked to a few people. I think he's an impactful guy. I think he can come in. Again, you never know how people the transition from. I don't know when he gets home from his mission, what those circumstances are. But he's another player with size that can shoot it. And yes, they're going to miss the Spencer Johnson. There's no question. He had a great career. I mean, 11, 16, and 3. You could say he laid it all out there in that loss. But I think you can't have enough shooters. If Robinson comes back, that takes a lot of pressure off recruiting because Chandler can shoot it, Robinson can shoot it, Saunders is going to continue to be better. Nell had great games, kind of up and down, health issues. Johnson's believing. We know what Hall can do, but I still believe that as a backup. You need another point guard or a combo guard, a guy that can give him minutes. And I think defensively Hall did a solid job. But, Khalifa is going to be Khalifa. If he can get healthy, they'll continue to run that action. I will say this about Duquesne. They locked BYU up defensively. I mean, the game prep for Duquesne was incredible. They had the athleticism to guard and take things away, and they didn't allow BYU to run a lot of their action. Of course, a lot of that action is dependent upon Khalifa, who at the high post can make decisions and make threes, and he was a non-factor in that game. Now it's just kind of like they're playing regular basketball, inside out, and Duquesne locked them up. I mean, again, they had a great game plan. They stayed with it. They were aggressive. And it kept them in a game where, it was still in question with a minute to go. But there's no way Duquesne wins that game without that stellar defensive effort. And I think they did as good a job as anybody in the Big 12 in terms of taking away what BYU loved to get. And that was just kind of a situation where you're looking for back cuts, you're looking for curl cuts, you're getting to the basket. Khalifa's just a very, very good passer. But they took all that went away when Khalifa was not playing well, and you get him out of the game, and Waterman couldn't stretch anybody, so they didn't have to guard him out at the 3. So Duquesne had a great game plan, put themselves in a good position. But I think, with the guys coming in, if Robinson stays, if he doesn't stay, then they're going to need to continue to look for, big guards that can shoot it. I think his name's escaped me, but the young man from Irvine, I actually really like. What was his? I forgot his name.
Dawson Baker.
Yeah. I watched him practice. I watched him a little bit in the games that he played in. But here's another guy that's been a Division I player for 4 or 5 years. It won't surprise me to see him step in along with Chandler and have an immediate impact in that team. He has skills. He can handle the ball, and in transition, he can handle it in that half court. He's got a toughness about him. So I don't think there's a lot of things that need to be added, but I think with Chandler having a couple of existing players, there's some bigs and others that are young. But
they got this Adams kid too.
Yeah, yes, big toe. And so I don't think they're in desperation mode here. I think they've got a lot of pieces already, but if you can, get somebody through the portal that's had success, You can't have enough guys, and you can manage this with guys sitting out and guys playing, and with injuries, you just can't have enough good players. And if it gets to the point where really good players come here and then don't have an opportunity to play, and that happens in every program in America, and they decide to leave, you just keep getting as many guys, 15, 16, 17, get that team together, that you're always going to have people leaving programs. And that's just, there's only so many minutes you can play. But I think with what they have coming in and those needs, I think they'll be fine. And they'll get better, from where they are today to next year with Chandler, Adams, with Baker. They're guys that can step in and play and have had experience. Adams hasn't, but everybody else has.
Just go get some bigs who can shoot and pass. No problem. Those guys grow on trees. Piece of cake. See? Problem solver.
Yes, that's true. Anytime you can stretch with bigs, it just opens the floor up. And in that game, the traditional game, it was easier for Duquesne when you're guarding a 6'6" post player and Foose, and he's not really a shooter from the perimeter. So they become more limited offensively. But that being said, the shooters in his team, other than Robinson, really didn't show up. So if they'd made a few more threes and stretched the Duquesne defense, it would have allowed the bigs to score, a guy like Foose to score when they had to pay attention to the shooters. But since they didn't shoot well, it was easier to guard Foose. And again, he's limited in certain things, but I still love him. I want him on my team. But when you got guys that aren't making threes, that defense just gets packed in and becomes much more difficult for post players when the game is being played from 8 or 10 feet from the rim.
Steve, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you next week when the Final Four is set.
All right. Take care. Have a good day.
There's Steve Cleveland. When we come back, he covers college basketball and the NBA draft for Sports Illustrated. Kevin Sweeney is talking hoops next. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated joined us yesterday. He covers college basketball, covers the NBA draft. PK and I had a lot of questions about where he thinks this goes from here, and also who should we be watching in the NCAA tournament now and where they might be drafted. Here's Kevin Sweeney. Kevin, good morning.
What's going on, guys? Appreciate you having me on.
It's multiple things going on. Obviously here we've seen BYU and Utah State knocked out of the NCAA tournament. And obviously the Utah Jazz just gave up 147 points to the Rockets. That's a certain kind of special right there. 47 points in the first quarter. You are definitely looking at the draft if you're a Jazz fan because there's nothing to see until then. Do we focus on Connecticut going forward here to see if they can repeat? And they got a couple guys who should go in the first half of the first round. Either one or both might be on the board when the Jazz draft. Maybe if they really want one, they'd have to trade up a couple spots to get one of them. What do you think about the UConn Huskies? Because I'm thinking that's the team we ought to all be watching here in Utah now.
I mean, they've been unbelievable. I mean, to put it into context, the previous 3 national champions before UConn, so that would be Kansas, Baylor, and Virginia, none of them have made it out of the first weekend of the tournament since winning the championship. It's kind of a wild stat. UConn, cruises into the second weekend, blew out Northwestern yesterday. They're so complete. I mean, you mentioned the NBA prospects. Donovan Clingan, their 7'2" big man, is a really good rim protector, one of the more impactful defensive players in college basketball. And then Stephon Castle is kind of the easy fit for any NBA team because he's 6'6". He's a physical wing. He can handle the ball. He's a very good defender. Still kind of learning offensively how he can impact the game, but a guy who I think will be a useful role player in the NBA, which in this draft, which is a rather weak one, that is a good sign. So they're phenomenal. Tristan Newton, their point guard, has been tremendous. They just execute at such a high level. Kind of a throwback team, run a ton of sets, very disciplined, very organized in what they do, and it's worked to great success. So San Diego State coming up on, I believe, Thursday night. That's a trickier game. And then, potentially Illinois or Iowa State, who could really push them in the Elite Eight. But it's going to take quite the effort to beat the Huskies this year.
So Utah State has a nice season, gets a tournament win, and then gets blown out by Purdue, I'm going to throw a theory at you, see what you think, that Utah State played not only Purdue, which is really good, but they played the ghost of Purdue. And what I mean by that is Purdue had numerous disappointments with high seeds and then losing, right? So in prior tournaments. So from that perspective, that Purdue was on high alert. And because of what happened and the failures that they have, they are so apparent, and it's so apparent and just so fresh on their brains that they're not going to let that happen. They may not win at all, but they're not going to lose to some lower seed going forward here. They may get beaten in a close game. So Utah State went into a buzzsaw versus the very good Purdue team of today, plus the ghosts of prior Purdue losses. What do you think about that theory?
I think you're right. Look, I mean, I've talked to people around this Purdue program all year, dating back to the summer. I wrote a big feature for SI about them. And look, this is not – they have not talked about FDU the way it's not a rallying cry, right? It's not, we lost Philly because now we have to do this. But there is an unbelievable fire inside of every single person in that program to – shut up everyone who has said everything bad about this program and about these players for the last 12 months. And they have been so good. They're an improved team. They are a much better team this year than they were a year ago. Their point guard play with Braden Smith has been phenomenal. Zach Edey has gotten a lot better. I know he won National Player of the Year last year, and people kind of view that as, all right, how much better can you get? But I thought the tape, from that Utah State game was just phenomenal in terms of, the way he was able to pass out of the post. I mean, Danny Sprinkle did a nice job trying to throw different looks at him. It didn't matter. He's just bigger, more skilled, and smarter than everyone else. And he's quite the buzzsaw to run into. So on to Sweet 16, two more wins from a Final Four, which, look, I don't know if it was championship or bust for Purdue, but it did certainly feel like Final Four or bust. So, it won't be an easy road going through Gonzaga and then either Tennessee or Creighton, but they're playing at a really high level and seem to have things rolling at the right time.
After a wild, crazy tournament last year where there are upsets everywhere in San Diego State and Florida Atlantic, I mean, what are we doing here? This is great. Now it's just chalk, like all the 1 seeds advance, all the 2 seeds advance. Is there going to be anybody remotely resembling a Cinderella in the Final Four, or do you think this is the revenge of the powerhouses?
Yeah, look, it's funny. I mean, everybody – last year, the narrative was there's all these upsets because of the portal and NIL, and then everything is now spread out. Well, this year, it's all chalk because the portal and NIL means the talent's all crunched up, right? At some point, we just have to understand that the tournament is an unpredictable being. And, certainly a lot of really good teams have won and held on. I thought we had a great first weekend and that we had some, miraculous upsets with, Kentucky and Auburn going down. We had incredible moments, including late last night with the comeback by Texas A&M that didn't turn into anything once we hit overtime. But man, I think the best teams are still on the board, which is great. I think we're gonna have some super super high level games. I don't know that there is a quote unquote Cinderella. NC State would be the one team that qualifies there, but I mean storylines galore. I mean, you mentioned the Purdue region, like Purdue, Gonzaga, Creighton, and Tennessee. None of them have won a championship. Purdue's looking for its first Final Four under Matt Painter. Tennessee's looking for its first Final Four under Rick Barnes, and I believe its first ever. Creighton looking for its first ever Final Four, and Gonzaga looking for the elusive championship that they've chased for 2 decades now. So it is very, very compelling what we're staring down, and I'm looking forward to watching.
We see this time of year they'll put up conference records in the NCAA tournament. Sometimes we do it. They always do it for football, but I think that's so stupid it doesn't matter. But I believe in the NCAA tournament as far as conferences' reputations, and if you have success over a period of years, that you get more of a benefit of the doubt when you get into the tournament in the subsequent years. As far as teams, you look at Gonzaga. I think their seeding was based on the Gonzaga history as opposed to specifically the Gonzaga team this year. Do you buy that?
I think there's a certain element of that. I mean, San Diego State to me would be the best example. San Diego State's resume was probably the best of the Mountain West teams, but it wasn't 3 seed lines better than the rest of the Mountain West teams, and 5 in many cases. I mean, the rest of the league got brutal draws throughout the bracket, 2 and 3 seed lines lower than a lot of people expected. San Diego State winds up on the 5 line. I think it's no secret that doing what they did last year probably boosted them, gave them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, San Diego State finished 5th in the Mountain West regular season and got a 5 seed. The Mountain West isn't necessarily perceived to be a power conference. Like, that is a wild thing for where the Mountain West is and for where San Diego State is. And they paid it off this past weekend, won 2 games, were dominating yesterday against Yale. But I do think that perception matters, and making some noise early in March certainly can help you along the way down the line.
I think here, watching the Big 12 and BYU, everybody really was impressed with Houston. And certainly they won the first 2 games. It was a scare there in the second round. But the way Iowa State just completely thrashed them in the tournament final, should we all expect Houston to fall apart at some point, or are they going to live up to the ranking we saw in the polls all season long?
Well, then the numbers love Houston because when they win big. I mean, they have blown the doors off of some people this year. But I do think that they're vulnerable, partially because they've had a ton of injuries and depth concerns. I mean, their front court is really banged up. JoJo Tugler was a huge piece. He's done for the year. Juwan Roberts is nursing, I believe, a calf injury and is nowhere close to 100%. And that's made it hard for them. I think it's the way that they play. It lends itself to really destroying anyone that you're better than, because they can pressure you and turn you over and suck the life out of you defensively. But when they get into a 50-50 game, can they win it? That's really the question. I think it's going to be hard for them to win 6 and win a championship. But I also wouldn't, indict them completely based on their worst day. I mean, obviously Iowa State's really, really good. I do think Houston can beat elite competition. They've proven that they can. They've beaten good Big 12 teams. They already, beat Iowa State earlier this season. But the consistency on the offensive end is really the thing that could hold them back come Final Four time if they make it that far.
Do you see a clear-cut number 1 pick in the NBA draft, or maybe even like a 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how far you want to carry it out?
I don't. I think it's wide open. Particularly because a lot of the guys that potentially could go number 1 are outside the state. So a lot of us haven't seen as much of them in person, and so some of those individual workouts and things that teams do in the April-May time period will be a little bit more impactful. Zachary Rissachet from France is a great prospect. Again, he's a guy that's easy to project because he's a bigger guard who can handle the ball, who can make a shot, who can really pass. Like, I think for teams in this draft, you're hunting for a guy who can come in and help your organization, not necessarily a 5-time All-Star or a 10-time All-Star. I'm not sure that there's that guy in this draft, but that's okay. I think there are enough guys out there who can help you that this can be an impactful draft for your organization. But I don't think it's a fun draft to draft at the top of, because if you're at 1 or 2 or even at the 3 to 6 range, I think you're probably drafting a guy that on paper is going to struggle to live up to that billing of a traditional number 1 pick.
So if there aren't stars at the top, are there still quality players for later in the first round? Because the Jazz have multiple picks, not just their own, which will be, depending on probably 9 unless they get really lucky in the lottery. But if you're drafting later, is there still going to be somebody, or does it get really thin back there?
I think there's more depth in this draft, or at least not a lot of separation. Like, I think you can find a good player between 20 and 40 in this draft. A lot, again, especially role players, right? Like Devin Carter from Providence had a phenomenal year. He's someone that I'd be very interested in drafting if I was picking 25th. He's a physical shooting guard who shot 40% from 3, got like 8 rebounds a game, is a great defender. His dad played in the NBA. Like, that's an easy fit. Arizona with Pell Larson, a guy that I know that people in Utah are familiar with. Like, he's been really good this year, and I think is a guy who will carve out a role in the NBA because, again, he has size, smarts, the ability to shoot the basketball, and doesn't need the ball in his hands to be successful. I think there's a lot of guys like that in this draft. So to me, that's where you want to pick. I would be stockpiling assets in that range and hoping to land a couple of cheap, controllable rotation players for my rebuild.
How does Kentucky keep losing, and particularly this year? They very well could have 2 of the top 10 picks coming out this season in the NBA draft.
It was a shocker. Again, I was at the St. Peter's loss 2 years ago, and my jaw is still on the floor from it. But this was a close second. I mean, it was just the way that the team played all year, how dynamic they were offensively, you felt like they were somewhat upset-proof. And to get into that tournament and just make so many mistakes. I mean, Jack Golke's a phenomenal story. He's everybody's March darling. But I don't know how you allow Jack Golke to continue to get shots off, right? At some point, there has to be a coaching adjustment from John Calipari of like, all right, like, we are top-locking this guy. We are not letting this guy catch the basketball. We are loaded with five-star athletes who are 6'7". Like, these guys, like, this guy is not touching the ball the rest of the game, and we will do everything we can to stop him. And they just couldn't do it. Like, they make so many. Look, I think coaches at the highest level of college basketball, what you want them to do is you want them to win you a few extra possessions a game, right? Like, if you steal, 3 extra shots and an easy basket here and there, you're going to win at the margins every time. And John Calipari has not done that for a while for Kentucky, right? If anything, he has been a drain on their talent from a coaching standpoint. And because of that, that's why he's on the hot seat. I don't know if hot seat is the right word, because who knows what's going to happen. But that's why there are a lot of people in Lexington who want to change, because at the end of the day, you cannot be the program that Kentucky is and lose in the first weekend 3 straight years and lose in the first round twice.
There's a kid playing in Australia, Alex Sarr, 7'1", 216 pounds. It seems like and he can shoot threes. It seems like there's always a 7'1" kid who's 220 pounds and can shoot threes. Is that the future of the league? Are we just going to keep getting this? And some of them are role guys, and some of them are starters, and some of them are all-stars? Because it seems like as soon as someone's 6'4", they're dismissed. And you're 7'1", and you're 18 years old playing in Australia. And some mock drafts have him number 1.
He's probably the best star bet in this draft, right? Like I said, that there's not a lot of guys who think are going to be perennial all-stars. If you were hoping to try to find one, you'd probably try to draft Alex Sarr. It is the unicorn era, if you will. There are a lot of 7-footers who can now shoot threes and handle the ball and do everything. Everybody wants the next Wembanyama. He is certainly not a Wembanyama-level prospect, but he can switch defensively. He can make shots. He can, handle the ball a little bit. He's good around the rim. Like, he's a very interesting prospect. And I do think the thing that I think with bigs in the modern NBA, like, you're looking for, like they need to have a skill that gets them on the floor. And you either need to be an elite rim protector, right? Like, I think a Walker Kessler would qualify certainly in that realm. Or you need to be able to lift offensively and be able to handle the ball and play make as a 5 so that you can open up things for the rest of your offense. Everybody wants the quote-unquote hub 5, right? So a Nikola Jokic type. Not that everyone is going to be as good as him, but the ability to handle the ball and be used in, like, the handoff game as a center in this day and age in the NBA is a massive deal. And I think the hope is that someone like Alex Sarr could be that.
When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag Utah Jazz.
Lob, marketing dunk. Colin Sexton hit the bullseye on the lob. Lowry on a back cut curl. Caught it and dunked it. Luka to the front court. No look pass to Lively under the basket, and he dunks. Luka looked left, brought the whole defense with him, and then threw it to the right to Lively, who dunked it. Sexton works around the double. Skip pass over the top to Markkanen. Left corner 3 is good. Lowry's in another place, in another time, in another zone. He's got 29.
And another L.
Indeed. 6 in a row. 17 out of the last 20, if you're counting. And why wouldn't we? 115-105, the Dallas Mavericks pull away. It was a tie game going to the fourth quarter, like the Minnesota game, the Oklahoma City game, compete for 3 quarters. And then not good enough, not experienced, whatever.
Oh, they're tired. They had to travel and,
Okay, yeah, sure. But they were traveling when they went 16-4 over 20 games. How many teams have had a stretch in a season where they're 16-4 and in the same season had a stretch where they were 3-17?
11.
11. Cool. Excellent. Quite the turnaround for the Utah Jazz. Markkanen's 34 in defeat. Oh, well.
Yeah, next, it was a watchable game, though.
It was competitive through 3 quarters, but in the fourth, there goes Dallas. The Jazz managed just 17 points.
I felt like Dallas was sort of sleepwalking through, and then when it was time to go, they went.
Yep, I thought they talked about that at halftime. Dallas just worked them, and so how revved up can you get for it? We can turn it on and beat these guys, and they turned it off and turned it on in the fourth quarter, and they beat those guys.
Who's they?
The Mavericks turned it on in the fourth quarter.
Said they talked about it.
Alema and Mike at halftime.
Okay, I didn't watch halftime.
I did by accident. I was flipping back and forth.
Don't apologize for watching it. No one's going to think you're any nerdier than you already are.
Cool.
It's okay.
Not apologizing.
I think you are.
No, you always do.
I know you are.
Yeah, you always default to that. Elsewhere in the NBA, the San Antonio Spurs making a little news. The Jazz play the Spurs in the Delta Center, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Let's get to the NBA.
Hashtag NBA.
Working on DeJounte Murray. Tatum with 6 to shoot it, with 4 to shoot it now. Tatum steps back, fires, and made it. Tough fall away for Jason Tatum. 35 points tonight.
Rebound, Clint Capella. Clint gets it back out to DeAndre Hunter. A three is good, and the Hawks take a 4-point lead. And it's almost good night time to those Boston Celtics.
DiVincenzo currently is tied with J.R. Smith in 2014 and Evan Fournier in 2022 for the record of 10 threes made in a game. He's in the corner. Flynn guards him. They're looking for him. Here he is, right side, three-pointer. There's the record.
McConnell comes across the timeline. George is on it. McConnell picks up the bounce, goes left edge Siakam. Siakam drives to the dotted half. Now sends it up top to McConnell. Back to Siakam. He'll try a three from the right side, and Siakam with 31 points.
Highlights from around the NBA. The San Antonio Spurs beat the Phoenix Suns 104-102. Oddly, San Antonio playing without Wembanyama has only won 16 games all year, yet they've beaten the Suns 3 times.
How do you watch a halftime by accident?
Channel surfing back and forth, just flicking around between games. I accidentally hit him.
That makes sense, Yuck?
Then flip back to the other channel.
I did, actually. I don't know what else they said at halftime. I didn't know what else they said at halftime, but I heard that.
I was at an event up in Ogden, so.
And by accident? I think I believe Shohei Ohtani more than I believe you.
Okay. Good for you.
Not bad.
Can you explain, or is that just sports and that's the way it goes and bizarre things happen and that's why we watch? That the Spurs would beat anybody 3 times in a year when they only got 16 wins and Wembanyama's sitting out the game.
Suns aren't that good, I guess.
Man.
Are they? I don't think they are.
They're 42-30, plenty good enough to handle the Spurs.
I don't know. Obviously, you're the one intrigued by it. What do you got?
Yeah. I got no explanation for it. It's weird.
I don't know. I turned off that game by accident.
Okay. The Denver Nuggets, a game in front of Oklahoma City in the top spot in the West after beating the Grizzlies 128-103. The defending champs rising above everybody else in the West as they continue to play fantastic basketball since the All-Star break.
Who?
The Denver Nuggets, the champs.
I think they've been playing it for about 3 or 4 years.
Rockets have made it 9 in a row now. They beat Portland 110-92. They are very close, just a half game behind the Warriors, maybe knocking the Warriors out of the play-in. Almost caught him with his 9-game win streak. I guess we could spend future segments looking at the Oklahoma City rebuild, which we've done, but also now looking at the Houston Rockets rebuild. How do you turn it around? Because the Rockets are way down and are getting better.
Oh, you get better players. I mean,
they're over 500 now.
Better players. I mean, what other way is there?
Are they going to max out where they are? They got the ability to rise even higher, almost to 500.
I'd have to actually give a crap about the Rockets to figure that one out. But you got to like what they're doing. It's about winning games. If you're winning games, you like what you're doing. If you're losing games, you don't like what you're doing.
Atlanta Hawks were losing a game. They were down 30 to the Boston Celtics. They have the best record in the East and had a long win streak and won 9 in a row. And from 30 down, they come all the way back to win, and Atlanta gets the victory 120-118 over the Celtics.
Nobody wants to play the Hawks in a play-in game.
The Hawks, 7 games under 500, sitting in 10th place in the East right now. Toronto Raptors forward Jonte Porter is under investigation by the NBA following multiple instances of betting irregularities over the past several months. At issue are prop bets involving Porter from games on January 26th and March 20th, and NBA spokesman told ESPN that the league is looking into it. This is something you've brought up multiple times on the show. People may have read it or heard it elsewhere too. When gambling's legalized, they are tracking, looking for anything that's a little irregular, a little odd. Large bets, $10,000 coming in the last second on the under on his individual stats, and then he removed himself from games. Coincidental or something going on? That's why the investigation has been launched.
Yeah, I think there's no question something's going on.
Coincidentally, it looks really bad, right?
He's in big trouble.
They can fine him, they can suspend him, they can ban him from the league. So we'll see where that goes. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
Gonzaga's the host in Spokane, but our team hotel was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is not very close, 35, 40 minutes. So that was a little strange, but whatever. And, we had several instances of some kind of racial hate crimes towards our program. Incredibly upsetting for all of us. Racism is real, and it happens, and it's awful. And so for our players, whether they are white, black, green, whatever, no one knew how to handle it. And it was really upsetting. And for our players and staff to not feel safe in an NCAA tournament environment, it's messed up.
That's the head coach of the Utah women's basketball team, Lynn Roberts. They got knocked out by Gonzaga last night, 77-66. Reports from Josh Furlong tracking down an assistant athletic director with the University of Utah who was with the team at the tournament in Spokane and where they stayed in Idaho. And reports Charmel Green, deputy athletic director, saying that someone pulled alongside in a truck, revved the engine, yelled the N-word towards the team, and sped off. They were walking to dinner at the time. And she said incidents plural. That's the one I read about. I don't know how many others there were.
Later in the story, it says they came out and there was two trucks.
Two trucks present, yeah.
And it is awful, and it's inexcusable, but I would wonder, she said they happened on Thursday. Why'd they wait till Monday?
I don't know. I don't know how much media is with them and how the word spread.
What difference is how much media is with them?
Well, because when you're there, you find out about that stuff faster as opposed to sitting here waiting for word to come back.
It says her byline here is from Spokane, Washington. Yeah. So KSLSports.com. She was there. But, I mean, there could have been nobody in the stand in the audience. She said it, and now it deserves to be said. I'm just thinking they should have made a big stink about this on Thursday. There's got to be some reason. It shouldn't happen, obviously.
Other college basketball news, Utah State coach Danny Sprinkle was hired as the Washington Huskies' new head coach. He gets a 6-year deal. It's going to average just a shade under $4 million a year. 6 years, $22 million. And he is out, and the Aggies are looking for a new head coach.
I didn't see this coming.
Yeah, you did. Despite the fact people are still doubting on Monday, but it was at least 2 weeks. And a pretty good idea.
It was done. I found out about it in Vegas. I don't run to Twitter and do all this, so you're not going to get first reported by. I don't want to scoop myself, but I've been saying for 2 weeks that this was over, and Utah State has been doing their work for 2 weeks. That's why Scotty goes out on Twitter and says that they'll move quickly. Yeah, because they've 2 weeks.
They've known for 2 weeks. Yeah. Washington State coach Kyle Smith is Stanford's new head coach, replacing Jared Haas. Smith was the 2024 Pac-12 Coach of the Year, led the Cougars to their first NCAA tournament appearance since 2008, and he is off to coach in the ACC next year. BYU freshman Marcus Adams Jr. has entered the NCAA transfer portal, meaning he could be set to join a fourth college basketball program. In the past year, he's reportedly hoping to move closer to home.
Hello, Long Beach State.
DJ PK.
Hashtag NFL.
I feel badly about Zach in some ways because, last year would have been he would have been a first time he could just sit back and watch a master at work, right? Mm-hmm. And he's never had that. He's been in the fire from day one. And I think that's what he needs. He needs to be in a place where he can observe for a while. And he's got the skill. He can do everything. There's a reason we drafted him at number 2. I have confidence that he'll get there at some point.
Can that happen here? Can that? I mean, you have Tyrod, you have Aaron.
I think it's it's possible. If we don't trade him, we're going to keep him. So it's possible that he could do it here. From his standpoint, it's probably better if he changes faces and gets to a new place and he can wipe the slate clean.
That's New York Jets owner Woody Johnson on Zach Wilson. If we don't trade him, we're going to keep him. So cutting him is now out of the mix. If you believe the owner. For a year.
Does he have like $5.5 million guaranteed this year?
The New York Giants ownership have given the green light to the team to draft a quarterback, even though they just signed Daniel Jones to a $160 million deal last year. They've got the 6th pick in the draft. So, what will the Giants do with that? San Francisco 49ers GM John Lynch said second-team All-Pro Brandon Ayuk is not available in a trade. We're actively talking with Brandon, trying to figure something out. We have a good history of working with the guys we want to get something done, and it takes two sides. There's a number of different directions it could go, but we appreciate the heck out of Brandon and who he is as a player, and we want him to be a part of the Niners. We're going to work towards making that a reality. So Brandon Ayuk won't get traded. He'll get a deal. They got a lot of good players there. Who's going to get squeezed out? They can't pay everybody if everybody wants every last dollar. Or are we going to see a deal where Brandon Ayuk signs for a little less?
Well, his social media post after those comments said, "Money talks, BS walks."
It do.
Colorado coach Deion Sanders said his son, quarterback Shedeur Sanders, and two-way star Travis Hunter will decide where they want to go in the 2025 draft and not the other way around, as is traditionally the case. I know where I want them to go, so at certain cities it ain't going to happen. It's going to be in Eli. Referencing Eli Manning, who didn't want to play for the Chargers and leveraged his way to the Giants. See if Deion is got the power to make that happen. If his kids are good enough to make that happen. Leverage it. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
So I never bet on baseball or any other sports, or never have asked somebody to do it on my behalf. And I have never went through a bookmaker to bet on sports. Up until a couple of days ago, I didn't know that this was happening. In conclusion, Ipe has been stealing money from my account and has told lies.
Shohei Ohtani addressing the media through his new translator. He did not take any questions, so he didn't do it. Ipe Muzara stole money from him. That's his account of it. Now I guess they have to figure out, how did he steal? How did he get passwords? How did he wire the money? Or you're not telling the truth now and you helped him do it, and is he taking the fall for you? Chris Carter style.
Do you think he's lying?
I don't know what the deal is. I guess I'd want to know whether he, what happened as far as how did he get access to the accounts and hack into them if you didn't help him or do it for him or want it done? I guess would be the bottom line.
Okay.
If I know the answer to that, then I know whether he's lying or not.
Okay.
You think he's lying?
My experience is folks that gamble lie. And if he's gambling, then he's lying. That's not to say he's gambling. But if he was, then yes.
Yeah, I thought about that exact quote. I've heard you say it many times. And I thought about that when I was watching some clips and reading a story about this last night. And it made me wonder, is Mizahara, using that logic, is Mizahara so desperate to cover his gambling debts, he'll do anything and steal from a guy who, by all accounts, was a friend?
Yes.
Or Ohtani's gambling, and he's so desperate that he'll sit up there. Took a few days, but he'll sit up there and just lie his butt off so he doesn't get kicked out of Major League Baseball like Pete Rose.
Well, if he didn't do any betting on baseball, how do they kick him out? what jurisdiction do they have to kick him out if he's betting on some European soccer? So I don't know that the banishment is possible if it's not anything involved with their own sport. I mean,
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of bets to track down to decide what the heck
but
he's
it's
betting
not
on.
a lot of money. If you're making $700 million, it's a fraction.
But it could be a lot of bets. That'd be a lot of bets to go through to see if he bet on baseball. And if he bet, I guess with him too, you should say, well, whether he bet on Major League Baseball or was he betting on baseball in Japan? I mean, or Korea. I mean, it's all kinds of questions to be asked and
Or
digging to be
Venezuela.
done. Theoretically, yes.
Hey,
betting on the Caribbean Series in
I was going
December.
to say, the winter leagues, man.
Yeah,
Come
right.
on.
That is what is trending. Coming up, Scotty G at 8 o'clock to talk about the search at Utah State for a basketball coach. Mark Durrant, BYU basketball radio analyst, putting a wrap on the season at 9 o'clock. It's also a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. We will be giving away tickets to see the Jazz and the Rockets Friday night at the Delta Center, and we will do that at 8:30 and at 9:30 this morning. Your chance to win and go to the game for free. Question of the day is next. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Ben Anderson, a Utah Jazz insider, KSLSports.com. You can read his byline there.
If you waste a tenth or more than a tenth of the season because you're down 30 after the first quarter of every game like they were against Houston, that's not valuable to anybody either. And then I think you start to build up bad habits potentially, or guys check out, or their care factor goes out the window, or they stop listening to the coach because he's like, hey, he's telling me to bust my butt out here, and we're down by 25. Like, why am I listening to this dude? Like, he doesn't know. So I don't think you want that either. And you got to walk a little bit of a fine line when you're tanking to not turn septic. And that's a little bit where the Jazz felt like they've gone.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hot Takes or Toast is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen with 30 years of serving Utah. Question of the morning. Is it better to go deep in the NIT or lose early in the NCAA tournament? Dan, how should I know? I'm a Utah fan. What is this NCAA tournament you speak of?
What are you, 10 years old?
Yes. He's 10. We have 10-year-olds posting on the Facebook page.
Because if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, and so forth and so on,
you should be able
know.
to remember the 2016 NCAA tournament.
Yes.
It's just a little sarcasm there from Dan. I believe he is disappointed that his favorite team has not been in the tourney the last 8 years.
I appreciate sarcasm.
False. Alex, the NIT is the G League of college basketball. Well, not exactly, but I get your point. It's second tier.
Why isn't it?
Because the best teams are in the NCAA tournament, and the best players are in the NBA, and then players who are really good, but not quite good enough, they're over there in the G League.
Right.
Teams that are good, but not quite good enough are over there in the NIT.
So it's exactly the same.
Well, it's not really a league, but okay.
But you're making an analogy. It doesn't correlate to the last minute or second of detailed information.
Danny, NCAA tournament, all day, every day is better than winning the NIT.
Ooh, we didn't say winning. We just said deep run.
He says, then even winning the NIT.
I don't know. You get a championship. They put up a banner if you win the NIT?
Probably. I don't know. I haven't seen anybody win the NIT lately. I think both schools have them up for winning the NIT, historically, decades ago.
Okay, but we're talking about now. We're not talking about historically decades ago.
I suspect they will. Historically now, we don't have a recent example, but I expect if either team won.
We have an example every single year.
You said, would Utah and BYU put it up?
No, I
think they would.
I said, would you put a banner up if you win the NIT? I didn't specify a school.
Well, I thought you implied that. My bad.
I don't imply anything. I speak directly at all times. Remove doubt.
Okay.
If I meant Utah or BYU or whomever, I would have said it. But I didn't say it because I didn't mean it. Quit putting applications in my mouth.
Keep your applications out of my mouth. Joe says, lose early in the NCAA tournament. Even if you win the NIT, you're still the 65th best team in the country.
That's so stupid.
Because whoever wins the NIT could probably beat some of the qualifiers who get in and get worked.
You would think.
Come on,
there's
Virginia.
Certainly a remote possibility.
You only scored 42 points. We could take you. Or come on, whatever 15th or 16th seed you don't respect.
From the SWAC.
Whoever, right?
Yeah.
Some league where...
Plus, you'd have to be 69th. That's just old school, inaccurate thinking.
Exactly.
So they don't even know that they're wrong in the numbers.
Or maybe Joe's like, no, I've figured out there's 4 teams in the tourney they could have beaten. Long Beach State was just hot for a week. They're not really that good. We can take them. They
Maybe
finished
so.
with a losing record.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Montana State just got hot for a week. We could take them. Rick says, one and done in the tourney is always better than the NIT.
How about if you got a really young team and it's just 15 extra bowl practices that make the difference?
We've all heard that argument, but in the transfer portal era, nope. It's too risky. Too many guys leaving too many schools. You can't guarantee you're going to bring them back and build off of that.
Sure, but you can't guarantee anything. Suppose you do bring them back.
All right, so PK,
You are good at this.
You are good at this, yes. You asked if teams raise a banner if they win the NIT.
Yeah.
So I looked last year. The North Texas Mean Green won the NIT title in 2023. They raised a banner.
Ah.
I would have expected them to, yes.
There you go.
Now, your next task, Yock, is to go back and find the last school that won and did not raise a banner. And
Okay.
go.
Give me a minute.
Rob says, most ballers are like the dude in Remember the Titans. You said ball, and I came running, close quote. And then in parentheses, that's mostly accurate. Yes, the NIT is lower, but once you've accepted your fate, it's win time, no matter what.
Well, yeah, for sure. And the thing about it is that I think there's a form of level of desperation there. You don't want your season to end. I would assume you don't want it. Maybe you're sick of the coach or whatever. But I would think that it's fun to play. I mean, watching the Utes play Sunday night, it's fun to play. It'll be fun to play tomorrow night. That's just what you want to do, and you get to do it, and that provides you an outlet to express yourself because that's who you are. So the point is it matters. I think, in a sense, it matters a little bit more than what you have in those tournaments in November and December because you still have 15, 20, 25 games left, whatever it might be. Here, once you get in the one-and-done situation, it really matters. So there is something a little bit more. Even if the outcome is not desired to win the NIT, nobody puts on preseason goals, win the NIT. But once you're in it, I think it does matter simply because once you get in a one-and-done situation, there's an extra sense of desperation, motivation, whatever shun you want. And so that makes it a little bit more interesting, to me anyway. I mean, maybe to other folks it doesn't. Maybe it's just like this, okay, this season was not what we wanted, and we're playing out the string here, so I'm not going to pay attention. But for the kids involved, it means something.
So be like the guy and Remember the Titans. Win the quarterfinal game. Give me a trip to Butler Fieldhouse.
Well, win whatever game is in front of you. And if you're enjoying the situation, you get to be with your guys and your gals another few more days and take another road trip, build more experiences that in 20 years you'll talk about when they come back and celebrate the 2024 NIT champion.
Tony says, obviously, the NCAA is more important. But any basketball to help a team improve is good. The Utes badly needed to play after how the season ended. Don't go out on that sour note.
Well, okay, but if you don't win the NIT, then you just
go out on another sour note. But maybe you can win the NIT. But you're right. You do set yourself up for another defeat. 31 of the 32 teams are knowing that's going to happen.
Is that they have 32 teams in the NIT?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of teams turned it down.
What was the final number on that? 16, 18? I mean, they got into the teens. It was double digits.
It was a bunch.
Yeah. Transfer portal. Hello. Gray, I am a Ute fan over the Cougars any day of the week, but the big dance matters more for the memories. But since Utah got the home games, it makes the school more money, right? Nobody remembers the NIT.
I don't know how much money it makes.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, how much money? I mean, they got to open up the building costs.
Yep.
So they actually making money?
I do not know the answer to that.
And then if they go to Indiana, does the NIT pay?
I do not know the answer to that. I have heard teams complain about the other tournaments that you can lose money in those.
Well, you have to buy your way in or some of
CIT.
those.
Yeah, you do. Yep.
Those the CBI and the CIT are both pay to play.
Yeah. I don't know if the NIT is going to produce a windfall. How many people do you think are going to be there tomorrow? Recognizing you work for a long-time Ute station, and you inflated the attendance numbers for game
I pled
one.
guilty. I told you I was wrong. What time is the game?
7 o'clock, and I want to rock. I'm going to go to Huntsman Center and get a belly full of beer.
3,500.
35?
That's what I'm going with.
For a chance to make the Final Four?
Yeah.
You are so wrong.
How many?
Minimum 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Count them.
Yak, what do you think? You want in on this? I think you had a pretty good number last time.
55-32.
Ooh. So you got the place at third
This
full.
is like a wave, man. It's building Mo.
Okay.
It's building Mo. Yeah,
Yeah?
55-32. That's what I'm going with.
55-32, very
So
specific.
you only got 3,000. I'm
Yep.
doubling that.
Okay. Is there a trophy for this? A prize?
There's a banner.
Ooh.
You hang a banner if you win. Yeah, we got the trophy right there. It's catch-all trophy.
Gonna repurpose.
You won your city's something or other thing.
Yeah. When you repurposed a soccer trophy from Sandy Parks and Rec.
Well, that's how much that was worth.
And somebody
That's
tried
what this will be worth?
Somebody tried to ditch it at our old studio, and somebody else picked it up and brought it for you.
Thank goodness.
Any award that's based on popularity is based on nothing.
There it is. Is it better to go deep in the NIT or lose in the NCAA? Don, I want my guys going to the big dance and losing early if that's what it comes to. He wants them in March Madness.
I agree.
That is what most fans want.
I would think that there's not a fan in the world who would take the NIT over. Now, we didn't say win, though. I wonder if the Utes win it, we'll have to readdress the question.
All right. Well, something to look forward to next week.
If they win.
If they win it.
It'd be cool if they won. I mean, once you're in a tournament, you got to play
win.
to win, man.
Win's better than losing.
Yeah.
Take the win.
So I'm not going to mock them if they win it and act like it's nothing. We wouldn't do it the Maui Invitational, right? Or whatever. They have 100 of them that they have in the Bahamas or Puerto Rico or
all
Vegas.
all the cool places you've gone in the Caribbean.
I have.
Following college teams.
Yeah. So how many games do you have to play to win it? Is it 5?
In the NIT, yes.
Yeah.
5. And in the case of the Utes, have been really good at home. The first 3 are at home, but to win the next 2, you do what has been more difficult, and that is when you leave the Huntsman Center, can you still play at a high level and win? And they'd have to do it 2 times against, I'd assume pretty good competition.
Yeah, but it's not at their building.
It's not a road game. It's neutral. No doubt about that.
I don't know what their record has been on neutral floors. Obviously, the home and road discrepancies in the conference were startling. And also a bit baffling, honestly.
It shouldn't have played out that way.
Right.
At the start of the year, if you'd been asked to predict, that is not what any of us would have predicted.
If you have the ability to take Arizona to triple overtime, then you have the ability to win at some of these places that have virtually no atmosphere.
Yeah. The Utes are 3-3 in neutral court games this year. So, see if they can pull off a couple, assuming they get the win at the Huntsman Center Wednesday night in front of 5,532 people.
Who are they playing again? Oh, VCU, yeah. They should be able to do it. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
I agree. You want the sign of a true desperate gambler? What is the line on the NIT game?
I have no reference of basketball. I would say 5, 6. But I never pay attention to basketball lines.
Utah by 6.5.
Yeah.
There you have it. DJ and PK. When we come back, Scotty G is going to join us top of the hour in about 15 minutes. Scotty G will be here to talk about the coaching search at Utah State. Coming up, we do have a question up here. In light of Danny Sprinkle's one and done, should coaches show more loyalty? We will get to that next. Stay with us.
Now let's get this party started. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
There are a couple of reasons that I didn't become a doctor.
Same reasons you didn't become a paleontologist?
Why do you crack a smile and then make a joke?
I'm just saying, there's a couple of reasons I wasn't a lawyer. Number one, the LSAT scared me. Number two, I thought I'd fail miserably. And number three, I didn't think I was smart enough. So yeah, there are just a couple of reasons why I didn't become a lawyer.
Can I make a point without you attacking me?
I'm not attacking you. You've never talked about wanting to be a doctor before. To me, this seems like you were just right on the cusp of going to medical school, and then just these one or two little things came up and made you think, no, I'm not going to do that.
Doctor.
Can you not attack me? You know, it bugs me when you do that.
Doctor.
Stop playing that.
And doctor. Well, we miss anyone?
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Band of the day, Kenny Chesney. Happy birthday, Kenny Chesney. You're 56 today. It's brought to you by Live Nation. For all of the live concerts and events in 2024, check out livenation.com. Gonna blurt out some lyrics here? Looks like you're feeling it. Nope, I guess not.
Would you be quiet?
Well, it's radio. We're supposed to talk.
She ain't a fooling me. It really turns her on. While I'm chugging along. He always closes his shows with this one. I was tilling up the land. She's even kind of crazy about my farmer's tan. She's the only one who really understands what gets me. Makes my tractor sexy.
Have you ever actually ridden a tractor? Driven a tractor?
No, but I've had many women think I'm sexy.
Hey-o.
Yeah, me and Jer.
That a kid.
I played with the little Matchbox cars.
Oh, really?
I was a big Matchbox car guy. Boy. Youngster. Yeah. So I did that. That's about as close as I got to a tractor. I worked on a farm for a little bit.
But you didn't get to
No, it was just like doing the corn and working on like an assembly thing of peeling it and sending it on and yada, yada.
Like Lucy and Ethel in the Chocolate Factory.
Kind of. It wasn't moving, though.
Oh, it wasn't? Oh,
No.
okay.
You just had a station, and it was brought. People don't realize this, but there's a fair amount of farms in New Jersey, particularly at the southern end of the state. A lot of open spaces there, and that's where I did it.
We had friends who had a dairy farm, and I rode on a tractor. I was like 10 years old, and I don't remember. I don't remember if it was Andy or Donnie. So it was driven by a kid who was younger than me. He's driving the tractor, 7 or 8 years old. I'm 10, riding on it. Things you did that weren't great. I was sitting over the wheel well, hanging on. He's flying around.
For dear life?
I guess. I didn't think about it at the time. But, yeah, falling backwards off that thing onto my head would have been plan B.
Because when you use the phrase hanging on, it has to be followed by for dear life.
Well, apparently it doesn't because I just used it. I was hanging on.
Right. That's why you were wrong.
Thank goodness you were here. In light of Danny Sprinkle's one and done, should coaches show more loyalty?
Yes, to themselves.
I was going to say no, but then when you said yes to yourself, you're essentially saying no.
The fact that he's leaving is not that big of a deal. I'm far more concerned about how many kids are going to go with him. And what level of recruiting has been going on the last 2 weeks? Because he's known for 2 weeks that he was taking a job.
Yep.
They've known. And so how was that handled? Does Osipor go? And you can go down the list.
I assume Osipor goes.
That's what I heard 2 weeks ago.
Why would he stay? He's proven he can do it at this level. There's a chance for him either to go pro and try that or to go to Washington and see how he fares in the Big Ten. And Washington will have more NIL money, and that should be more lucrative for him. So I don't see why he would stay.
Because he likes it, and he's got a girlfriend there, and he doesn't want to be uprooted for another year after being uprooted. The kid's from England, right?
He is.
And so maybe the comfortability of the situation. Why mess with good? There are plenty of reasons why he would stay.
And if his coach were staying, then I think all those things could come into play. But with his coach going, I expect he goes.
Right, but that's not the point. You asked why would he stay?
Yep.
I don't see a reason to stay. I see many reasons to stay. Doesn't mean he's going to stay, but I see many reasons why he would want to stay.
Gary says there's a limited time you have to coach at this level. If another university is willing to pay you millions, you go. Who knows? He could flame out in 2 years and be back in the big sky.
A limited time. It's like saying you got a limited time to work. He's like 43 years old. He can have another 30 years.
He could.
That doesn't make any sense.
I think Gary's point isn't that. It's that if you lose, you can get thrown to the curb and be done in a heartbeat.
Well, then why take any other job? If you fail, I quit the newspaper, which I could have had till Kingdom Come, maybe. I don't know with the layoffs. It all changed. But I really wanted to take a shot at this. And I could have been, in fact, I was canned. I literally was fired. I had to go through and have somebody save my gig. They had it set up. I was told, leave the studio at 10 o'clock on Monday because they're firing you at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. I mean, you got to take a risk in life to get what you want, unless you're born into it. And then you have the perpetual safety net if your parents are rich.
Denise, I think Danny Sprinkle is actually showing loyalty. He's from Washington. He's going home. He's loyal to home. But not to Utah State.
Where do you play his high school ball? What form of loyalty?
Reed says, Montana State was asking me the same question last year. He should go where the heart leads.
And where the paycheck drives you.
There's that.
He's going to get 3 times the amount of money. And that's just per year.
And your point?
It's not over the length of the contract.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to ask Scotty this next because I thought they were basically doubling it to $2 million and the average of 3.7. So to your point, it's like tripling the first year, but it's quadrupling at the end of the deal.
Okay.
I mean, it's just
there you go.
So it's like, yes, the Aggies coming to him with his lucrative offer that doubles his money. But he can double that offer by going to Washington. The money's overwhelming. That's what we've heard about college sports, and that's just one of probably many examples.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
We'll talk with Scotty G about it next. He joins us right here on The Zone.
This has got a dirty word in there.
Careful, Yock.
But it wants to be a rock star. You can kick it back fast. You can rock hard. Yeah. Oh, he wants to butt rather than the A word. Whatever you want to be. You can try to seal the deal. I can't now. Sorry, Scotty, hold on. Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union. So glad I get to read that every time.
DJ PK and Scotty G Unit returns to the show. Scotty G, good morning.
That was shockingly on tune, PK. That was some of your best singing right there.
Yeah, rock star. He sings that with Tim McGraw.
That was impressive. I like it.
Thank you. It's a good rock tune.
Scotty G, before we look forward, I want to look back just briefly. Danny Sprinkle got an offer that made your jaw drop and your eyes bug out and whatever else. It was stunning. Later on, we find out it probably would have pushed his salary somewhere near $2 million, which is unprecedented for Utah State Aggie coaches.
Yep.
And I see this. I don't hear you talk about this on the radio. I see it on social media. And within 24 hours, I figure, well, he's gone to Washington or somebody else that comes along with more money, because you would take an offer like that in a heartbeat if you were offered it, Scotty. PK would take it. I'd take it. Almost everybody listening to us, I think, would take it. And he didn't, which was just very telling. He was gone. So that's when I figure, oh, he is out of here. When did you know he was out of here? Because I'm thinking you knew well before me.
I got the sense when you get an extension of that significance and that offer that is floated before you, and you don't take it, and you don't immediately sign your name on that pen or on that piece of paper, something's going on. And this Washington deal, look, let's be honest here, you don't put a deal like that together in 12 hours. You just don't. So this had been in the works for a while. Obviously, probably considering the fact that Washington lost their AD, the ball was probably already rolling before he left. And I'm not saying that anything was nefarious. It's just that's how the business works. I mean, I think Vanderbilt was in on the situation as well. Oklahoma State was probably part of it as well. And I think that he had a myriad of different offers, coming back to Utah State being one of them, and ultimately decided in on Washington. His dad was a defensive back on the football team back in the day. His sister still lives there. He spends a ton of time up there in Seattle. He loves that area. And I think the fact that Jeff Goodman tweeted out about a month and a half ago that he felt like Washington was going to be the place where he ended up, national writers like that just don't pull that out of their you-know-where, man. That's an educated decision and an educated prediction. And I think that we all kind of figured that this was coming down the pipeline pretty quick.
He told the Seattle radio station yesterday that it was his dream job. University of Washington basketball.
Hey, look, you give me $3.75 million over 6 years, it can be my dream job pretty quick.
Nah, but see, that's very cynical of you, Scott M. Gerard. That, no, it's his dream job. He didn't say it was his dream job because they paid me an enormous amount of cash. He said it was his dream job, my good friend.
Well, and you know what? There's truth to that to a certain extent, because his dad was a Husky. He grew up a Washington fan. Like that's the you kind of gravitate towards the school that your dad played for or that your parents root for. And even though he went to Montana State, I think obviously he would have gone to Washington had he been able to go to Washington as a player. So, yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, he grew up a diehard Husky fan. So, that makes sense that he would call that his dream job. And then the extra money attached to it probably doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, and it's really a fantasy job at that point.
Oh, yeah.
I think that you went through the emotions that I've described. The college basketball season as it ends is nothing like anything, because you go through these incredible highs, and then a week or 10 days later, you go through an incredible low. It's unlike anything in sports. You take the situation of Utah State in the final game of the regular season. They're celebrating wildly, and they win the conference outright. They should be celebrating wildly. It's a great time. Then they have a week later the disheartening loss in Vegas, but then 2 days later, they get to the NCAA tournament, and then they get the extreme high of winning a game, and then they get the extreme low. New Mexico had the extreme high of winning the conference tournament, and then a few days later, the extreme low. Now, for a guy like me who doesn't care about outcomes, it doesn't really matter. But for guys that are invested and have a little bit of a fandom, particularly if you get to know it, and everybody who broadcasts the team is a fan. DJ tries to claim he's not a fan of RSL, but he's lying. Everybody else has that intense feeling. Did you feel a sense of emptiness when they lost that game? Because it just ends so quickly after riding an extreme high just a few days earlier.
Well, yeah, no, there's no doubt. And yeah, DJ's off on that one, if that indeed is the case, because you just get to know everybody. And it's not like you're, like, you know, I went to Utah State, so obviously I hope Utah State does well. I mean, PK, your Arizona State allegiances are well known. So
Grand Canyon.
It's like, yeah, exactly. It's okay for you to have an investment in the school that you went to. I'm perfectly fine with that. But it's also a little bit deeper because you get to know the players, you get to know the coaches, and so you root for them as individuals because you know their struggles, you know what they're going through, you know the behind-the-scenes stories, you know what they're trying to deal with. And so you genuinely want good things to happen to them. And so when they do, you're fired up for them. You're excited for them. You know, that's the first time Utah State has won an NCAA tournament game since I was a student at Utah State.
Yep.
So that was cool. And then when it ends, it's like, oh,
yeah.
You know, deep in your mind, you're thinking, well, geez, you know, maybe they do go to Detroit. Maybe there is a Sweet 16 opportunity here. You know, and you see guys, you know, teams like FAU and stuff like that, and you start thinking, wow, how cool would that be? And then the other part is, I mean, you get into a routine. You know, you're working on your spotting boards, you're doing the interviews, you're doing the coaches' shows, you're doing all that other stuff, and then all of a sudden, it's like, you know, you're going 80 miles an hour and you run into this massive brick wall and it just stops, and you're like, oh, geez, what am I supposed to be doing now?
I know.
And it's just a weird feeling when it all comes to an end because it's go, 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 and then just stop, and like, oh, crap. And then you get paid by the game, and then all of a sudden that money dries up, and that sucks too.
Yeah. Then you start looking, hey, Sprinkle, are there any openings for play-by-play with Washington?
Hey, Danny.
And no, because there's an 85-year-old guy.
Probably.
Actually, he's a pretty young dude. Tony, I can't remember his last name. First name's Tony. He's probably early 40s. He's a good dude, good play-by-play guy.
The Aggies have had somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks to work on a head coach, which is why you're tweeting out things like, I think they're going to move quickly. Yeah, because they've been moving for a while. And the transfer portal looms. How many guys do you think are going to go to Washington? How many guys are going to go somewhere else? When do you think the Aggies will have a coach? And do you have an idea who it might be? At least, you know, a handful of names.
Yeah, I don't know names per se, but I do know that Diana Sabo, one thing that I've been really impressed with her is she's really proactive on this one. Utah State took their time last go-around, and obviously they hit it out of the park with Danny Sprinkle, and we saw what he was able to do. But it took some time, and they got bludgeoned in the portal because of it. But now, you know, but Danny was able to scrape things together and obviously have a dream season. I would be shocked if Utah State doesn't have an announcement on a new head coach if it goes into next week. I think by the end of this week, maybe even this weekend at the latest, Utah State will have a new head coach named. I think that the wheels, they've seen this coming. This has not caught them off guard. Ryan Odom last year really kind of, I don't want to say he's struggling out, but I don't think you'd want to get behind Ryan Odom at a Subway because that dude had a decision-making complex. Like that was he went back and forth. He wavered quite a bit, and I think Utah State at one point really felt like he was going to stay. They put a good offer in front of him, and then eventually he ends up going to VCU. And so one good thing about Danny was that he was like, all right, you know what, we're going to get this thing done, and 12 hours after they get back from the tournament, Washington announces that he's the guy. So at least you have the closure. It's quick. You can move on. And Utah State has anticipated this. I think the ball's been moving for quite some time, and I think that Utah State will have a coach in place here pretty soon. As for assistants, I don't know. It's a good question. Andy Hill, Eric Brown, I mean, Haslam, they've been with him for a long time. Eric Brown is not, but Andy Hill has. I would anticipate Andy Hill will throw his hat in the ring for the head coaching job. I'm not sure if he'll be a candidate, but I do think that a good number, if not all the assistants, will probably go with Danny Sprinkle of Washington.
How about any ball players?
Great Osobor obviously is going to be the big target, and NIL money is going to be flowing like manna from heaven up there at Washington. So I would anticipate that Great Osobor will have not only a huge offer from Washington, but pretty much every other school in college basketball will throw whatever money they have at him. So he'll be a tough one to keep. Ian Martinez, I think, will be one that will be attacked. And then I don't know after that point. Mason Falslev, tremendous player, had an incredible freshman season. He's got 3 seasons of eligibility left. So whether it's Washington or somewhere else, he'll be highly sought after. And now the players can transfer as many times as they want. I think a lot of these guys are going to be, let's just say their DMs are going to be fired up pretty quick. That's why there's a huge urgency for Utah State to get a coach in place. And I think the message to a lot of these players is, hey, look, we understand it. Your guy left. But, we'll get you a new guy in place. Just meet with him, talk to him, find out what the style is, see if it coincides with your game, and then you decide. And if you decide to go, then we'll pat you on the back, say thanks, and let you go on your way. But at least give us a shot to bring in a coach that we think you'll like.
When you're doing the coaches show, do you just refer to it as the coaches show? Is it dangerous to say it's the Danny Sprinkle coaches show? Because, with 5 coaches in 8 years, you might just blurt out the wrong name at some point.
Well, that has happened. Yep. I mean, that, I called Ryan Odom, Craig Smith several times, and Danny Ryan a couple times. I mean, geesh, it's like PK in college, there's just a new person every day of the week. So
wow.
It's just
you can kick it back or you can rock hard.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you feel like a rock star.
That's my guy right there.
Should the Aggie fans just get used to that, given how much money there is in college sports and where the Mountain West sits? They've got more money than the Big Sky. They can go hire the best coach out of the Big Sky, but is someone just going to keep hiring away their guy if they have success? And do you have to get used to possibly having 7 coaches in 12 years?
Well, I mean, if you do, that means you got a good thing going, right? And so let's go glass half full on this. You're never going to compete with somebody offering your coach $3.7 million. Utah State had an offer in place that would have significantly eclipsed Blake Anderson in the football team. I mean, when you're paying more than your football coach and significantly more than your football coach to keep a guy around and you can't keep him, there's nothing you can do at that point. So you can say, well, shoot, this sucks, and this is what was me, but at the same time, you can also say, look, that means we've got a good culture. That means we've got a good fan base. We got a place where people can be, that they can be successful. So let's embrace it, and let's continue to bring in coaches that can win here. And because you're never going to compete with that. I mean, DK, we'd all take that offer. So you could be mad at Danny Sprinkle all you want, but at the end of the day, we'd all do the same thing. So use it to your advantage and say, this is a place where you can go. You can get a lot of wins. You can be successful. You can go to the NCAA tournament. Now you can win in the NCAA tournament, and you can parlay that into your dream job where you're making generational type money. So, you can put your head down and be upset about it, or you can use it as an opportunity to go get a really high qualified young coach.
Yeah, the only argument I would say, it wouldn't be the end of the day. It'd be the first thing in the morning for me, as far as that goes.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah.
I would take that in a heartbeat, yeah. And so there's nothing you can begrudge. They brought in somebody who had no connection here, and he won, and he moved on. It is the sort of a lower profile version of Urban Meyer. The second Chris Hill hired Urban Meyer, it was a question of when, not if. I mean, this is the way it was, man. So it's the same thing here. That's the risk you take, which leads me to believe, do you believe that they would put any emphasis on possibly getting someone of a Stu Morrill ilk who has a connection here. Stu grew up in the state. I believe he grew up in Provo, a couple hours away, but still he had his mother, and so he was able to visit her, obviously much more conveniently from Logan as opposed to Fort Collins where he had come. So is there anybody that you think that they would consider locally or some type of local connection that might prevent this from happening in a year or two or three?
I would personally, first off, Chris Burgess would be one of my first phone calls. Cody Fugger would be a phone call I'd make. I would. Those are some of the guys locally that I'd reach out that have local ties. That's me personally. If I was AD, Diana Sabo though has no connections to Utah, and I don't think that's a high priority of hers. Now that's me speculating. I don't know. I have not talked to her about that, so I'm just speculating. I think she's like, I'm bringing in the best person I can. I don't care about local ties. I don't care about if they're going to stay here forever. That would be nice if they did. But my job is to hire the best coach so that we can get back to the NCAA tournament. And when I say we, I'm talking on behalf of her.
No, I got you. Yeah.
But I don't think that that's a high priority. I think she's looking at it from a perspective of, I just had a magical run. We won a game in the NCAA tournament. We got to keep that momentum going. And I'm going to go hire the best coach I can. She's obviously got a ton of Midwestern ties. It's a job that I would think would attract a lot of young, innovative, motivated coaches. And so I think she goes that route. But, Chris Burgess would be one of my first phone calls because I think he'd be a fabulous head coach, and I think he deserves a shot.
Is there any momentum to go back and search Aggie rosters and see who is in coaching or who might like to get into coaching and try to put someone on the staff and start grooming them for the job, even if that is years away?
Yeah, smart move. Absolutely. They went that route with Spencer Nelson, and obviously that staff got let go, and that got turned upside down. But I think a lot of people anticipated Spencer would probably be the next head coach at Utah State in some way, shape, or form. I don't hate that idea at all. I don't know of any that are in coaching that are former players right now, but I don't think that's a bad idea at all to go and try to find something or someone that can fill that role. I just don't know who that'd be, but I think it's a smart idea for sure.
Well, Scotty, you got through this relatively unscathed without too many personal shots, attacks, humor. You got to feel like this has been a successful segment.
Pretty much, yeah. No weird shot from PK. I got some good singing there at the beginning. Relatively no weird questions. And so, yeah, I think overall I'd give it about a 9 out of 10. Would do again.
Sweet. Excellent. And, the great thing is you don't have to drive in at, 4 or 5 in the morning anymore to be on the show. Now you just get to pick up the phone and do a segment. You've moved up in the morning.
I know. Yeah, no, that doesn't suck at all. I'm all about that.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scotty. We appreciate it.
All right. You guys are the best. Thanks.
Scott Garrard. Hear him today, noon to 3 with Hans Olsen, and you'll hear him on Aggie Games again next fall. DJ and PK, we're taking a break. Mark Durrant's coming up to talk BYU basketball at 9 o'clock. It's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. We're giving away tickets to see the Jazz and the Rockets at the Delta Center Friday night, and we will do that right on the other side of this break. Stick around. DJ and PK, it's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. 2 tickets right now for caller number 12, 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. You win a pair of tickets to see the Jazz take on the Rockets Friday night at the Delta Center. Ticket Tuesday. Tickets now all day long here on the Zone, every hour at 30 minutes past the hour. If you don't win now, try again at 9:30. All right, PK, off our last discussion, anticipating how that was going to go, you put up a question on our Facebook page. Are schools like Utah State better off hiring one of their own or a hot outsider? And Robert says, 6th coach in 10 years. It'll be 5 and 8, but it could be 6 and 10. You might be right, Robert. We'll have to see. As an alum, I would say try your own again, get out of the race, and let someone else build a program.
Yeah, what's your own, though?
Yeah.
Because Scotty's championing Chris Burgess. He has no connection to Utah State.
Right.
But he would be ready to take over and be a head coach. I think he would do an excellent job. I'd root hard for him. I like him a lot. I've known him since he was
in high school.
Yeah.
Because you stood in a gym after having called him 40 times or 50 times.
Was that me?
Or 60 times. Yes, it was. And there are people who haven't lived in the market 30 years who don't know the backstory, but many do.
And I've never won an award for that.
Interesting.
Not even the city thing.
Yeah, well.
Fetch.
Yeah, there you go.
But
they don't give awards for good reporting because the people out of state who are judging don't know what good reporting is. They give awards for either, like you say, popularity or for pretty writing or pretty emotional storytelling.
I'm not pretty.
Right.
No, I'm roll over in the dirt and mud. He has younger kids. I've talked to him about it. I know what he's got. He's got boys. He's got girls who are good volleyball players. But the younger boys, that might encourage him to stay in the state. Although at the same time, it's going to be a Craig Smith type of deal if the Utah gig ever came open, or BYU for that matter. He might go. So you never really know for sure. But, I would certainly consider him. A guy I'd also consider, I don't know if they would do it because he's labeled as a high school coach, although he does have coaching experience at the college level, assistant coaching, and that's Quincy Lewis. The guy's a phenomenal coach. I don't care if he's coaching junior jazz. He's a phenomenal coach. So
Won another state title.
Yeah, these guys really good. And that comes not from me. That comes from other people who've told me, and I've seen him coach. So, I know this. And so that might be it bugs me that he would be labeled as a high school coach when he's a basketball coach. The same thing with Chris Jones. Jonesy is coaching at Highland right now, right?
So he's a high school coach.
But he's not. He's a basketball coach.
Except he was at Utah as an assistant. He was at Utah State as an assistant.
Yeah, he's a basketball coach. So those are some guys that have local ties that would be more likely to stay. But you just don't know about that as far as, well, if they blow up and then they get another thing. Because they went with the Matt Wells. He was a local guy.
He played at Utah State.
Yeah. But
Scotty will tell you he turned down a couple of big-time offers before they finally came with a big-time offer.
Okay, but he still left.
Yep, he did.
And you can finish second place in recruiting all you want, but you're not getting the kid. And he left.
But if people stay 6 years, I think Matt was here 6 years. If you stay 6 years, that's different than what's happening in basketball, where they've had 3 coaches in 6 years. 3 years and gone, 2 years and gone, 1 year and gone.
The good thing is that the program has some big-time built-in advantages that'll always be there. Unless you really suck and go 3-25 or something, then you might be in trouble there as far as the passion that is there for the program and the students. They want to have fun, and that's what they do, and they go to the games, and they have a great time, and they chant, and they carry on and all that stuff. And so if you have any form of winning, I could be the coach, and it would be there. It's always going to be there as long as you put out a halfway decent product, which for many years they have. Before Stu, they struggled a little bit, but since Stu, most of the time, it's been really good. So that's something that makes it attractive, and maybe that the money that they scrounged up to pay Sprinkle, which he didn't take, some of that would still be there, so you can increase the salary going in.
Well, I think they can because they got $2.7 million buyout from Washington, so that is certainly an injection of money that can be reinvested into the program. Now, it doesn't have to all go in the coach's salary, but nonetheless, it's there. McKay Wallace says, either way, Utah State should add in bigger contract buyouts and coaches' contracts to help and keep coaches in place to build up their program. I think they have, and I think they will. I'd have to talk to somebody up there, but I'll bet that's the biggest buyout that they've had in a coach's contract. And I would expect that in the next one, the number will be even bigger.
Okay, you don't want to spite yourself, though.
No, you don't.
Because that might prevent somebody from taking it. Maybe not.
I think the money's gotten so big for some of these schools that you're right. You don't want to spite yourself. You're not going to take that number 10 times bigger, right? That's just ridiculous. But would you take it up to $3 million or $3.5 million or something? You have to gauge the market and know, and I don't think you and I know enough to do that, but it's just the numbers are going up, and I think that would be one of the many numbers going up.
The good thing is that I believe that they're dealing from a position of strength. And I like what you're saying as far as the Matt Wells situation. If you got somebody in there who's there for 5 years, and so as I say in 10 years now, looking ahead to 2034, if you had 2 head coaches starting from today, not Sprinkle, from today on, so we get to 2034, and you look back and you've had 2 head coaches, do you take that?
Yes, 100%.
As long as those coaches
win,
go on. Not that you have to fire them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but if you have coaches who win for 5 years and then leave, that's just how the industry works.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, how the industry works now is you can leave after 1, 2, or 3 years. We got all these examples right here. And basically anybody who's having success at a smaller school right now, I was just reading last night, somebody else was jumping. Who was it? It was a team that was in the tournament. Did you see? I can look it up, whoever it was. Somebody was in the tournament and won, just got a job and went to a bigger school. It was one of the smaller schools, and I'm blanking on who it was. It's how the industry works right now. These big schools are awash in money. They can pay the buyout. They can pay the coach. They can pay his assistants. And they can tell him, we'll get you the NIL you need.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what they're telling Sprinkle. He's going to get more NIL than he had at Utah State. I think he was disappointed in what he got at Utah State.
But that's that. But I don't know that Utah State can tell him that. I'm talking about Utah State.
Utah State can say it to the Montana State coach. That's how they got Sprinkle. They can pay more. They can pay the assistants more. They can pay more NIL than Montana State. I mean, it's a whole food chain.
Yeah, but you're not competing against Montana State.
No, that's where you're going to get your next coach. I mean, that's where they went and got the last one. We'll see where they go to get this one.
I don't even know that he has to
Maryland, Baltimore County. Is that where Ryan Odom was when they hired him away?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, they have more money than Maryland, Baltimore County.
I don't know.
Craig Smith came out of the Dakotas.
Well, there wasn't an NIL then.
Right.
I don't know that he has to be a head coach, though, an existing head coach, because obviously Chris is not.
That'll come down to what the school administration wants.
You don't need that. I mean, Tommy Lloyd was not a head coach.
There you go.
And he's coaching at a very extremely high
Get
level.
Gonzaga's assistant, go to Arizona, win big. They're in the Sweet 16. They're conference champs.
Right. So just because he's not a head coach doesn't matter. They've got to find a way to get – I think it, as they say at the end of the day, when you make the hire, if it's somebody who has a connection, great. But if somebody blows you away, then so be it. I mean, Urban Meyer, he concocted a connection. And even still, he's still running out the line. Oh, Shelley and I, we're coming back at least twice a year.
Yeah.
Shut up.
He said that at the coaching clinic. Yeah, I was there. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you're not.
And he brought up CSU. We're from the West.
No, you're not.
No, I don't think he said from the West. We've been in the West.
Well,
we like this part of the country.
And
but what you like most,
Florida.
But what you like most is what he also said. Ooh, Ron McBride, I know he can recruit. I know there's talent in that program. Now we're getting to the heart of the matter. All the other stuff is around the edges.
That's a whole different. That's so long ago.
Yep, it is.
That doesn't have anything to do.
Now
with
you
it
can.
now
You got the portal. So if there's some talent in the program, go to the portal and get it. Sprinkle did.
And who are you going to bring with you?
Yep.
So that even if you're an assistant coach, you could still bring folks with you.
Yes. There is definitely that possibility. You've built the relationship,
right?
And the player trusts you and likes the opportunity and likes the NIL. Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be at the program you were at when you got the gig.
No, it doesn't.
Because you're recruiting everybody.
And some of those guys go to other schools and you stay in touch with them.
Yeah.
And they all are super nice. There's no more meltdowns. Well, not by smart coaches anyway.
Yeah.
There's no more meltdowns when you don't get a kid. Just figure, maybe we'll get them later on the bounce back.
Or you get them at a program that you're not currently at.
Right. You move to somewhere on the food chain that the kid finds appealing. I like you, but I got more talent than playing in that school in that league. But then when the coach jumps, you're like, ooh, yeah, I'd like to play at that school in that league for that NIL.
Yeah, you just take the situation with Mark Madsen. He coached Fardaws Amick at 2 different places. How many times has that happened? Well, that's the new world.
Right.
It's going to continue to happen.
Yeah, they were at UVU together, and Fardaws took off for the Big 12 and Texas Tech, but Madsen got the Cal job, and there was Fardaws Amick grabbing rebounds at Cal this year.
Right. just 2 years apart. That's so weird, but that's the world.
It's the new normal.
Yeah.
It's only weird if you go back 10 years.
Well, I go back 10 years.
Yeah, I know. But you're right. In the new,
I don't go forward 10 years.
In the new, not yet, but you'll time travel later.
I don't have 10 years.
Well, you better, because you want to see if Utah State has 2, 3, or 4 coaches by 2034.
Well, I won't be on planet Earth.
Well, maybe you'll watch from wherever you are.
I'll be dead. Well, no, it'll be too hot where I'm at.
Okay. Woe is me.
I'm going to live in Phoenix.
With the internet, checking on Utah State's coaching situation.
For sure.
DJ and PK, Mark Durrant is here to talk Cougar basketball in 15 minutes. Yak, you got the Jazz Ticket Tuesday winner?
Yep, congratulations to Tim.
Tim's going to the game to see the Jazz and the Rockets Friday night at the Delta Center. 9:30 this morning. We give away 2 more tickets. Stick around right here on The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Gary is a more experienced player at this level and has won more games at this level and played at Baylor and had success on that team at this level. There's potential for more wins with Gary at quarterback. That doesn't mean he's going to win the job. But I do think he has the potential for more wins. But how is the shoulder? How long can he stay healthy? And can Jake do enough of the dynamic things that he does to convince A-Rod that even though Gary might win 8 games opposed to Jake winning 6, that they're better off long-term with going with Jake? They're going to have to weigh all that out. I believe that Gary gets you 1 or 2 more wins this year if he's the starting quarterback than he would if you had Jake.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK. We are brought to you by Spherian Staffing. Are you a business owner? You have better things to do than job hunt or scramble to find your next great hire. Let Spherian Staffing and Recruiting do it. Visit Spherian online at spherian.com/Utah. PK?
Yeah.
It's story time.
You guys got to explain how this works.
This isn't a golf story today. No. Going to the other end of the spectrum, the stuff that confuses PK.
Yes. It's just so baffling how this works. Yesterday in the hallway, I'm speaking with Ruth Todd. Now, she is a longtime broadcast journalist, right? I think pretty much everybody knows who she is in the market, and she's working for Bonneville in an executive position right now. And she and I share a bond of Arizona.
Yes,
right?
With great enthusiasm.
Yes.
As I already knew, but was reminded in the hallway yesterday.
Yes, and she's a sports fan,
you guys were getting into the nitty-gritty, driving versus flying, this airline versus that airline. You both go back and forth on this stuff. So
right.
You're and looking for an edge. How do you save time? How do you save money?
And so she brought up an airline that I haven't used. It's a low-cost discount airline that flies out of Provo. Right? And I've flown one. She's flown both. She's telling me about the other one. And I actually emailed her about this later on in the day.
Yeah. I heard this part of the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't flown the one airline. She has. I'm going to check it out, right? Well, not more than an hour later, after talking about this airline, naming the airline, she giving it a good recommendation. An hour later in my email that my wife and I share, so our personal email, I get this email from this airline. Allow us to introduce ourselves.
Yep.
How in the crap does that happen?
The microphone's on in your phone and Siri's listening. They're eavesdropping on every word. I think this is very easy how this happens.
I don't like this.
I know you don't like it, but it's happening.
Big Brother's watching.
Yeah, it's happening.
I'm going to start going more incognito. Not Richie incognito.
It's happened to you more than once because you texted me a few months ago. You said something about some candidate. You said, why do people not like this person? And I said,
I think it was Trump.
And I said, it wasn't Trump. And I said, well, because of this. I think it was Mike Lee. And I said, because of this. And you said you got an ad saying, that's not true. Mike Lee, blah, 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 whatever it was, like 4 hours later. It's the same thing.
Oh, yeah. You were trying to persuade me to vote against Mike Lee.
It doesn't matter if you vote against Mike Lee or not. He's going to win. But that was the question. Why do people hate
my life?
Why do you hate
my
why,
I vote?
Why do you say you literally said, why do people hate this guy?
No, I said, why do you hate him?
And you said, no, you didn't. And you said, and I said, here's one issue. And you got a text about that issue on your phone, and you texted me at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, but I thought that was general. This struck me
it's
as
the
weird.
It's the exact same
Allow
technology.
us to introduce ourselves to you. Hi, nice
PK.
to meet you.
PK, it's Siri. They're listening to all the words and all the conversations, and it go through AI, and there's people who pay to get access.
Iverson?
No, artificial intelligence. And there's people who pay to get access to that information to sell you, whether it's a politician
Let's get to know each
or it's
other.
an airline.
We'll start.
Yes.
I don't want to know them.
Stop using Siri.
I never use Siri.
Power down your phone.
I have never once used Siri.
Really?
What do I need Siri for?
Get directions to find a place to eat. I don't use Siri either. I haven't had that happen to me. But somehow someone's got access to the microphone on your, which and to Yak's point here, does the government? Is the government listening for you to use?
I don't ever use Siri.
For you to use keywords that would lead to a search, and
I'm not even sure I used the word.
Okay.
She used it.
Yeah, but the microphone hears it and knows that your phone is there.
Did you type out that email on your phone?
What email?
The email you sent to Ruth Todd.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
there's also data mining happening on your phone as well.
That's true
the
too.
app is looking at everything you're typing.
Yep.
And then it's going to begin.
I mean, how else would I send an email without typing it?
Well, if you did it on your computer or something like that.
Oh, okay, I got you. I see what you're saying. Okay,
Right.
Gotcha.
Yes. So yeah, everything once you put it in the into the digital universe, whether it's audio or it's written word, yes. And they're looking to sell you on stuff. And it could be tires, it could be a vacation, it could be a politician, it could be food, it could be sport, it could be anything. If the company on the other end is paying for the access to it.
Okay.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Freaky.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It's probably the TikTok videos PK makes, don't you think? All the dancing videos we've seen of PK on TikTok, that's probably what's doing it.
I don't have TikTok.
When we come back, Mark Durrant, BYU basketball radio analyst. Where do the Cougars go from here? That's next.
Make me laugh. We were growing our hair. We were cutting class.
Don't miss your chance to be a big winner every week on The Zone. Win Ticket Wednesdays. You can win a pair of tickets to see A Day to Remember at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on July 21st. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. Time to welcome Mark Durrant back to the show, BYU basketball radio analyst. Mark, good morning.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Apologize for my voice. I'm a little under the weather, but it makes me feel good to talk to you guys.
Nice.
Hopefully we'll cure what ails you, but I don't think it works that way. You've had a few days now to kind of get away from it all. Are you, when you start thinking college hoops now as you recover, are you thinking about the good times, the wins, the victory at Kansas, obviously high on the list, or, man, that was depressing against Duquesne. You know, they're the little guy with no tournament experience, and BYU was the better seed and coulda, woulda, shoulda, and didn't. Which way are you leaning now, emotionally?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I was pretty bummed about that loss. And part of the reason I was and am is because of those other things you talked about. I mean, they had a great preseason, played terrific, overachieved in the Big 12. We're in mostly every game, got some big wins. And so I probably wouldn't be as bummed about the tournament loss if they hadn't played so well all year long. And I just kind of felt like this team had a little something special with how they were playing, and that would translate into a better finish to the story than they got. But, listen, we three are old guys now. We see that it doesn't always go like the movie script. Sometimes it happens like that. And but it was disappointing to see BYU fizzle a little bit at the end, given how well they played this year. But I really like this team. I mean, it was so fun for me to go see all those new places, and this team played with a lot of fire and a lot of heart. And so I love this season. I had such a good time. I love these guys, and part of the frustration is I feel for them too. You work hard. You work so hard all year long to get a decent seed, and BYU had a decent seed. Say whatever you want. And they had a matchup that, on paper at least, looked like it was a good matchup for them, and they just didn't get it done that game. But overall, I thought it was just a magnificent year and a great group of guys, and I had a lot of fun.
What does this team need going forward to be successful again in the Big 12 and then, of course, in the NCAAs?
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, I think they've got a lot of pieces, and like between last year and this year, bringing back a lot of the same guys, they got a lot better. So I'm hoping if they can bring back the majority of the guys for next year, that they'll again be a lot better than they were this year. So just a natural improvement from guys that have been in the system, who've played together, have honed their game and gotten bigger and stronger. And then if you add some guys like, obviously Colin Chandler's a highly touted recruit that they're looking great for the great things from, and Isaac Davis. And if you get Dawson Baker back healthy, and even guys on the team like Ali Khalifa, if he can get a little more healthy with his knee and get in better shape, I think that would serve him very well. So I don't know that they need to reinvent the wheel or anything. I thought they played good basketball, and now just try and get better. Guys improve their games. I think Dallin Hall is a guy that can really step up and be a leader. I think they need a little bit more leadership than I saw this year, and I think Dallin Hall maybe be a guy that can do that, and a little better shooting. Guys like Trevin Nell, who I think is one of the best shooters in the country. Something happened to him mid-season. He was injured, and he was shooting in the upper 40s before that, and then just never found it again. And if you're a team that relies on threes a lot, you have to have several really good three-point shooters, and I think it hurt to have him fall off a little bit. But so some consistency from the three-point line, get some better shooters in there, get some new blood with Isaac and others coming in, Colin. There's no one answer, but I just think this group, showed that they can get better from year to year, and now we'll have another year to get better together, and we'll be a force to be reckoned with for years to come.
That was a heck of an answer. I honestly thought the answer was going to be NIL. You crossed me up there a little bit. I've heard that despite doubts and maybe some fits and starts in real life, that there's a longer-term commitment to NIL and supporting the basketball program. Have you heard the same thing? And if so, can you give us kind of the parameters you've heard maybe?
Yeah, well, I wish I was more of an expert on the NIL and how the intricacies of that work. I think there's some seating reconfigurations that's going to bring in a significant amount of money from some big-time donors and boosters, and that'll be dedicated to basketball. I think BYU's learning how to do it, and the various collectives. I think they're competitive. They're certainly not at the top, and they're. If they're going to go up against certain schools, they're going to lose as far as money goes. But I think BYU has a lot to offer. They do a lot with, we think of kids, obviously, and obviously you and I and Pat, we want to get paid, and we want to go where we get paid the most money. That just makes sense. But the BYU, I think, with some of the kids from Africa, they've done a great job of supporting their charities and getting them back to Africa and doing things that are really fulfilling for them as people. So you've got money. Obviously, you need to be able to not be laughed at when you offer money in the NIL. And I think BYU is doing stuff to make that happen. But they also offer a lot. It's a good environment to be, and I think the kids. A lot of kids want to just go where they're appreciated and can make a difference. And hopefully BYU offers that. I'm not naive enough to think that they're the only school that can do that, but I think if you talk to the guys on the team and the way that they're generally able to retain guys, it's a pretty good spot. And anyway, I wish I was a billionaire and could just give them all a bunch of money, but I'm not even half as rich as Pat, so I got not a lot to offer. But you certainly have to be competitive in today's world. BYU is always very active in the transfer market, and so they're going to have to be able to say, hey, we want you here, and this is what we can offer, and not be just dismissed out of hand. They have to be competitive.
a lot of talk and hype for this Chandler kid. I believe he was the highest recruit they've ever had and all that stuff, at least here in recent times, maybe back when, Sean Bradley and maybe somebody else, Ainge possibly. I don't even know if they had rankings in those days. But where I'm going with this is he's coming off a mission, and you were there. You came off a mission. What do you think is realistically expected from a kid who's coming off a mission to be able to get back and be an effective player that first year?
Well, we don't want to use me as an example because I wasn't very good coming off the mission. I think they're better now of getting guys ready, and Colin gets home pretty early. And, I think Marty Haas with his boys did a great job of kind of figuring out a good path forward to get ready to play the first year you're back from your mission and be successful. I think Colin will have enough smart people around him to, one of the things you try to do is just get it back all at once. And it's a process, and you're also prone to injury because you're trying to get back so quickly. So just ease into it. There's no hurry, and talk to some smart people. And I think he's certainly, kids are so much more mindful of their bodies nowadays and working out and eating right. And I certainly wasn't. So I think the program is better suited for guys to be able to come off a mission and be immediately successful. But it's a huge transition. I mean, it's hard. You look at Dallin Hall and Richie Saunders, they played great last year. But coming off that mission, it was a struggle, and they were highly inconsistent at times. And this year they were just so much better because they had a year under their belt. So it's hard to expect too much out of Colin that first year, notwithstanding all the great things that he's done and his high recruiting status. But I absolutely think he can contribute and be a very important part of this team.
When we talk to football coaches, they always talk about how good the high school football scene is here, how good the coaching is, how much it's improving like every 5 years, 10 years. It was good in 2000, it was better in 2005, it was better in 10. It just keeps trending up. I don't hear people say the same thing about basketball. Am I just not talking to the right people? How much talent's on the local scene, and is BYU getting enough of it?
I think there's some good talent. The question maybe is BYU getting enough of it? Obviously, Wasatch Academy produces a lot of good players, and I think the AAU scene is really good in Utah and in the West. And I follow Kevin and Dalton Nixon and some of the teams they put together and the tournaments they go to, and they get really good results. And I think the local scene is maybe better than people know, and you see a lot of teams from outside the state trying to come in and get your players. But BYU's gotten their share. I mean, Richie and Isaac and others and Colin, they're not being shut out by any means. But I think it's actually pretty good scene. And the AAU scene is so different than when I played. I mean, we finished basketball season, then we're like, what's the next season? Baseball. Let's go play baseball. And these guys, no, it's all year round at a high level. They travel, they get amazing experience. It's probably too much in my view how much they play. It's just like nonstop all year long. But I think it produces some pretty impressive players. And I think Utah can certainly hold their own with any state with the kind of high school product you produce. And I think that you look at BYU's team with Sweeney and Richie and all those guys. I mean, I think they've got better athletes than they've ever had on BYU's team, and they maybe need to get even better. But it used to be when we'd go out to shoot the layup lines that we'd look down the court and we're like, man, we do not look like we belong on the same court as these guys. And now BYU can actually look like, when they go up against some of these Big 12 teams, like, yeah, they look like they belong. They've got some real strong, big, athletic guys. And so I think that those days of BYU being kind of deemed as the unathletic and, that type of thing is in the past.
This Jackson Robinson, how much of a difference is it going to make if he returns versus if he doesn't return, the positive and the negative?
Well, I mean, it would be a huge benefit if he returned. He's such a good shooter, and the type of offense BYU wants to play. That's a premium to have a guy that can not only shoot the three, but could shoot the NBA three and also can finish at the rim. And so, I mean, it just adds a huge weapon. I mean, that's crazy to not think that losing Jackson wouldn't hurt your team. But I think this team all year long was able to show that it wasn't about just one guy. A lot of injuries, including Jackson. They were able to play at a high level without guys, and so they have good depth. And so it's not the end of the world if you don't have Jackson. But man, what a benefit he would be! What an asset he would be if he did come back. And I held no hope that he would, but he did seem to leave the door open a little bit after the tournament, which gave BYU fans some hope. And I like we were talking about before, I think he's a guy that has enjoyed his time at BYU and values the experience. And maybe you could get him to come back. But either way, he that last game I think showed how good he is and how important he can be. He had a beautiful game, and he needs to maybe whatever he does, whatever level he goes to, he needs to maybe be a little bit more consistent and kind of raise his intensity level. He's just kind of a smooth guy, easygoing guy, but at that high level in the NBA or wherever, he's going to really need to be focused and intense and get after it a little bit more. But he's a tremendous kid, a great young man, and a great player.
There was more stability on the roster this year and less transfer portal action than there had been in previous years. Do you think that's where it's going to go going forward, or is every year a one-off depending on what is needed?
Yeah, that's a good question. I tend to think with the group as it is that that I think most of these guys are going to come back. I think they like each other. They spend a lot of time together and would like to continue what they're building. So I think with this group, it's probably likely that most of them will come back, but that's just this group. I mean, I think otherwise it's a one-off. I mean, from year to year, BYU, there's been years BYU's lost a bunch of guys, and so it depends on the group. It depends on the year. I think generally speaking, year to year, you're going to lose more than you ever anticipate. But I don't know. I just get a feeling about this group because they came back last year, and I think they're going to have a tendency to want to continue to get better together and like each other, and so I'd be surprised if they lost a lot of guys this year, but you never know in this environment.
You think it's both a blessing and a curse that essentially your season, to a good extent, not completely, but to at least some extent, is judged by how much success you have in the NCAA tournament? And then I'm wondering, man, it just seems like the pressure feeds off itself for Mark Pope. They got to win in the tournament next year, so there'll be some level of, but no matter how good they do in a Big 12, which I think will be tougher next year than it was this year.
It's a lot of pressure. As you felt it this year. I mean, there have been years that BYU felt maybe lucky to get in the tournament and did not perform well. And it's like, it was a great season. We made it. The expectation was not just to make it this year. It was to win in the first round and be competitive in the second round and maybe make a special run. Who knows with this team? And so there was a lot of pressure. I think that may be factored into it. I mean, BYU did some uncharacteristic things. They were 11 for 22 on layups in that game. And that kind of points to guys that were a little bit maybe amped up or nervous or whatever, because that's atypical of that BYU team to shoot that way. And you put a lot of pressure on yourself, and given BYU's history, which has not been particularly bright in the NCAA tournament, this team, I think the expectations on this team put a lot of pressure on them, and it is unfortunate, like I said, to have that, because it is, I think, in most ways determinative of how you look at a team in the long run historically on how they do in the NCAA tournament. And so even if they were a really good team, you look at that result, you think, well, it was just another one of those years for BYU. And so that's frustrating, because I think this team was better than a one and done in the tournament, but that's how it worked out. Now, what you want to do is get to a place where you have the type of team that can is so good that you even get a better seed. You're looking at a 3 or a 4, and you have real good depth, and you're accustomed to being there, and it's not a new experience. And that way you can kind of get the monkey off the back a little bit and win a couple games, and then it kind of builds on itself. It's kind of the Gonzaga model. Just keep getting there, and now everybody expects Gonzaga to get through the weekend. I mean, no matter how good a team they have, it's just they win games in the tournament, but it wasn't always that way, and Gonzaga had to earn that and had to build that program, and I hope that BYU's doing that with Mark Pope and can get to that point where it's not only expected that they win, but that they actually win and are a force in the tournament.
Well, we appreciate a few minutes this morning. Hopefully you feel better soon. And when you know which fabulous trip you're getting next fall/winter, let us know whether, Maui, Honolulu, the Bahamas, Puerto Rico. I mean, you've been to some pretty awesome places. I don't know what you're going to add to the list, but I suspect you're going to add to the list.
Well, that is a good perk. I think San Diego's on the list. I mean, I know you love San Diego. There's no better place than that, but we'll see if we can get some other trips. But that is a nice perk of doing this job, is getting to go on a nice trip every year. I bring my family, and, that's good stuff.
All right. Good luck with that, Mark. We appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Thanks, boys. Take it easy.
Mark Durrant, BYU basketball radio analyst, joining us right here on The Zone. Coming up after the break, we give away 2 more tickets to see the Utah Jazz and the Houston Rockets Friday night. It's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. If you don't win next, Jake and Ben will have tickets at 10:30 and 11:30 right here on The Zone.
Now let's get this party started. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
This story is crazy about becoming an ultimate Aggie, which apparently is getting up on that bull naked. What bull is it? Is it the one that's by the Estes Center? Isn't that bull like bucking? I'm just wondering how 5 nude men could fit on that.
It's a big bull.
5 nude men could fit on that?
5 smaller men, probably could make that work. There you go. That's the size of the thing right there.
Okay, it's not bucking. You could probably fit upwards of 10 naked men on that. So in order for you to be the ultimate Aggie, you have to be naked?
Yes.
I did not know that this was a thing.
See, I would think if you were going to be an ultimate Aggie, that it needs to be solo.
Because these 5 were not solo.
And that's where a lot of guys up at Utah State are like, hey, let's maybe dial that down a little bit.
Easy. One ultimate Aggie at a time.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
So I never bet on baseball or any other sports, or never have asked somebody to do it on my behalf. And I have never went through a bookmaker to bet on sports. Up until a couple of days ago, I didn't know that this was happening. In conclusion, Ipe has been stealing money from my account and has told lies.
It is time to get you up to speed on everything we're talking about. 9 a.m. Slacker Radio Hotlines brought to you by Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. Find your new Mazda at the south end of the valley at Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown. That's Tim Dahle Mazda Southtown in Sandy. That is Shohei Ohtani's new interpreter, translating for Shohei, who had a press conference, media availability, but took no questions. There's an ongoing criminal investigation. I'm sure he had lawyers advising him not to take any questions. But went out there and spoke for a few minutes and said he didn't know anything. It seems like there's 3 ways this can go, PK. 1, he didn't know anything. He got ripped off. 2, he didn't gamble, but he's friends with his ex-interpreter, so he pays the debt so that something really bad doesn't happen. And 3, he was gambling, and the interpreter's taking the fall for him, or maybe they were both gambling, and he's lying about it now. People who know more than us about technology, I think they're convinced that they're going to be able to dig into it and find out how this money actually got transferred, and was there a way for Shohei to know or not. And so I guess we give it a little time, that plays out, and we get some clarity if people who know more about technology than you and I are right. Do you have a gut instinct, or would you prefer in something this hot to handle, not to have any assumptions, figuring it'll play out and we'll know?
I'm going to believe him.
The guy somehow got access to his bank accounts and ripped him off. Had whatever PIN numbers, passwords, whatever it took to do a little online banking and wire transfer.
Yeah. Why would it be anything else?
Because I don't know why he'd share the information so the guy could actually transfer the money. And if he's really friends with the guy and the guy's really in trouble, even if Shohei had nothing to do with the gambling, I can see why he would try to bail the guy out. And I get how bad that looks later, but in the moment, when you're sticking up for somebody who you really like and they're in a really tough spot, I get how you do it, even if there's consequences down the line, and maybe you don't consider them at the time. Just like in the moment, you're trying to help somebody you care about. And you do the wrong thing trying to do the right thing.
There's no record of Shohei Ohtani living a stream of lies. Doesn't mean it's not
possible.
reality.
Yeah, it's possible.
Whereas we now know the other guy was saying stuff about his credentials that weren't true.
Not true, right.
Isn't there two things? A university and then some work with the Red Sox or something?
And so if the resume was lied about, well,
Right.
what else was going on that was under the cover of darkness and not known?
I mean, before I went to the Mesa Tribune, I had put at the Casa Grande Dispatch that I won the Pulitzer, and they never checked it.
Woo! They just didn't have the research staff.
Patrick Kinahan, Pulitzer Prize winner.
I brought down that community.
You were the watchdog.
Yeah.
And so he's got a pattern here where Shohei doesn't.
Yep.
But I've also read stuff, wait a second here, man. This goes, and you're telling me that that's not, you knew nothing about it, and then out of the blue, a week or two earlier, you announced you're getting married. What was going on there? That was strange. But, you know, until you've been in a man's shoes, not literally, obviously, with the Japanese media and the way they cover their celebrities, and right now Shohei Ohtani is probably the top celebrity in the country, maybe. I don't know.
If he's not, he's very close.
Yeah.
They're clearly, there are businesses in Japan dedicating a lot of resources to providing as much information about his life as possible and tracking him as much as they can.
So how in the world did he keep that under wraps?
So what other secrets could he possibly keep under wraps?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you can let your mind wander all over the place. It's a bad look. I hope that gets resolved as painlessly as possible, just
Quickly.
for him and for the sake of MLB. They're 48 hours away from opening day. They had a great season last year with all the rule changes, and people embraced it, blah, blah, blah. You'd like to see it continue on a little bit of a high rather than have one of their premier, if not the premier.
Yeah, the premier. I suppose in local markets there are guys who are more popular, but I can't believe there's anybody who's more popular across the sport. I mean, in Philly, somebody loves a Philly more than they love him. But across the sport, he's the guy.
That is simply Bryce Harper.
Yeah, it would be Bryce Harper. You're right. In New York, somebody might love a Yankee more than they love Shohei, but
that's Aaron Judge.
That's exactly who it would be, yes.
Aaron Judge won.
Hey, give Giancarlo Stanton some hope.
No.
Nope.
It's Soto.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, Soto's probably the guy.
Yeah, because he speaks English, and he's charismatic, and he seems to like the microphones.
And he's young. He could be good there for a long time.
Right. He's got the look. He's got the Yankee. He came with the Yankee look.
It all adds up if it works, but we've seen times in New York he thought it was going to work, and it didn't.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But, I mean,
But it could. And if it could, it could be glorious.
He's got the skills. And there's a lot of folks from his country that live in that area. But Shohei has really just taken over. Pretty much you don't have to follow baseball to the Shohei Ohtani. So for the sake of the game and for the sake of the human being, for the sake of all human beings, who's going to be rooting crap to come upon human beings?
Well, I'm sure there are people, but you try not to hang out with them.
Which is why I keep my distance from you.
Yeah, for 20 plus years. That almost makes sense.
Well, yeah, but you're on that side. I'm over here.
Well, I am. I am sitting 4 to 5 feet away from you.
Right, and I don't ever let you get closer.
And then
I've never allowed you to touch me, nor will I ever.
Stop sliding so far away.
I know, and I know how you feel about Yak because you make him stay in the next room.
Yak? Yak's a cancer.
Damn straight.
This is some things you shouldn't embrace, Yak.
He's Mark Jackson on the Jazz.
You think you should be starting, don't you? Throw Kirilenko an alley-oop and then tell him some more about it. Scotty G joined us earlier this morning. What will the Aggies do? Intriguing. It's one of those, and Scott invoked the whole glass half full, half empty metaphor during the interview. I mean, actually might have done it multiple times. The good news is they had a great season. The bad news is the coach is taking off, and multiple players are probably gone as well. You can go back and listen wherever you get your podcasts. Scotty started to run down the roster of his expectations for some guys and where he thought the offers would be, and it's about what you'd expect. The better players who score more points are going to be heavily pursued. He went into a little bit on the job search with Danny Sprinkle. Washington was not the only school interested. He went into that. You've talked about you knowing for 2 weeks, and I asked him how long he knew, and it seems like he had a pretty good idea, really even 6 weeks ago, that it was happening, which is why Utah State's going to move quickly, because they also had a good idea.
Well, yeah, I wasn't talking to Utah State people until Vegas.
Right.
And then when I got down there, they were there.
Right.
I was in their team hotel. Put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, there you go.
It's going to equal 4 every time.
Yep.
And that's why I kept saying it was going to happen.
Yep.
The good thing is that he did it quick. He didn't drag it out. I think that's good for the university.
Yes, and Scotty went into that as well in detail.
Yeah. And last year they got decimated. Could you recreate that magic again? Probably not.
That's what Danny Sprinkle said in one of his last media availabilities.
Right.
This was incredible, but you have to admit that for whatever skill and talent was involved in it, there was a little bit of magic as well, and replicating that would be dicey.
Although you can see how it happened in retrospect. You know, a foreign guy who ends up at the Big Sky, his talent level is better than the Big Sky, and a Darius Brown who's undersized, but yet his talent level and his moxie are far beyond where he played.
I think the Darius Brown story is more, probably more common. Osseber had upside and tapped into it. He was more dominant at Utah State than he was at Montana State. That's pretty unusual. But he kept working, kept growing, kept getting better, all the stuff coaches preach all the time, and he did. But I mean, you look at his stats and
I don't know what was going on in Montana State. I didn't follow it.
Behind other players and not good enough, I guess.
But his body, his size, his skill level, you can see it. So can they do that again? I don't know. But get their work done and come to a decision in which you feel absolutely this is the best dude, and then go ahead. And there's no reason why the program has to take a significant drop. Since they don't win NCAA tournament games every year, would I expect it next year? Probably not. But would I expect it next year if Sprinkle was still the coach? I don't know that I would. But go get somebody who's dynamic. It's all about recruiting, man. Whittingham will just drill that into your head over and over and over again. Don't be praising me. If you want to praise me as a coach, praise our ability, as Urban said, to find guys and develop them and make them into draft picks. And that's what Urban was talking about when he was speaking on Saturday. And we know Utah has done a phenomenal job of that in football. So that's what you got to have in basketball. It's real simple. You want to be good, get a good coach, and get good players. Now, going about that way to get that is not simple, but the path to it is hard, but the formula is easy. It's easy to understand. Have a good coach and have good players. Because that's what's going to happen. So right now that the Sprinkle is gone, so be it. Best of luck in Washington. I'm not going to follow you that much. You're in the Big Ten, maybe in the NCAAs. If you're in the Pac-12, I'd follow you religiously. But here, I'm more interested right now to see what the roster looks like and how many of these players that are potentially available to move. Because if they stay, then they should have a pretty good team next year. And I realize they got a couple of players. Brown is gone. He's out of eligibility, right? So
he's done.
He's out. So then you got some
3 at Northridge, 1 at Montana State, and a 5th year at Utah State.
And so you got some guys here, and if you can bring somebody in quick, and they with the staff can get them into thinking we need to be here, okay, then you'll probably be pretty good again next year. And even if you're not, bring in a new coach who can find ways to build a roster in the manner that Sprinkle did last year. Who's to say you aren't good again next year?
Well, the cool thing is, even if they miss on this coach, I think they've really established a reputation as a place where a coach can go and further their career. So that'll last for a few coaching hires. They'll have something. They'll have a story to sell here for the rest of the decade. If you're good, you can come here and really elevate your status in the profession. DJ and PK, when we come back, your feedback next.
And it's all over almost here. Don't go nowhere.
It's time for your feedback now. Rhino at R.K. Davidson. What? Utah State's AD didn't hire someone after the game? I guess they only fire people right after the game. But USU should embrace who they are and what they're doing. They've been really successful. They made some nice runs. Always hire the best you can.
Go for mediocre and hope for the best.
Well, the question was, hire one of your own or a hot outsider. He goes, the best you can. They hired one of their own and they ended up firing him. They've hired 3 outsiders and been poached. I'd stick with a hot outsider.
Okay. Yeah, I can't argue that. Reasonable.
Terrell says the hot outsider ride has gotten us 2 regular season Mountain West titles, one of them outright, 1 shared, 3 second-place finishes, 2 Mountain West tournament titles, 5 NCAA berths, an NIT berth, and an NCAA win in the last 6 years.
Pear tree.
With our last insider, we finished 8th, and 7th with 0 postseason berths.
Yeah, but it was a hard 7, though. All right, get the best candidate. All right, you made your point. You backed it up with some numbers.
Yep. U State Iceman, is Utah football not doing the raise your grow them up coaches? Why would US not do that? And why wouldn't it work for USU?
It could work.
But they've got to intentionally hire an assistant coach who has some ties to the program.
See, the problem here is you look at Kyle Whittingham, and that's a good point Utah State Iceman has raised. He doesn't have a huge circle.
Right.
Because he's not a hobnobber. The dude coaches, hangs with family, and a few others. And that's it. Very simple man when it comes to that.
He's only worked at 2 schools.
Yeah.
Somebody who's moved around. Like Grimes knows a bunch of people because he's moved around to a bunch of different jobs and he's worked with a bunch of different people.
All portions of the country.
Right.
Yes. And so you've got that situation there. So you look at his staff, and it's a high preponderance of guys
who played at the U.
Yeah.
Because that's who he knows, because he's been to the U.
Right. And so he stayed there. And so you bring in an outsider. Does he know some Aggie who's coaching somewhere?
You would have to serve him up and tell him you're going to get this job, but this you really have to do it for him.
And they don't do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. You can be encouraged. Like Chris Hill did not
Urban.
Strongly encouraged to hire Kyle and to Urban's
didn't
credit,
order him. Didn't order him.
No, he retained him.
Right.
And that's a large part of 34, 32, 33 years of pretty good success.
Another question we've got it here this morning. In light of Danny Sprinkle's one and done, should coaches show more loyalty? Landon, better question. If you as an employee can quadruple your salary, should you not do it? 99 times out of 100, the answer to that question will be yes, quadruple it. We are, or should be, a free people, and this comes with freedom. There's no sour grapes here. Landon turns Danny loose. Hey, there's a number a coach has to have for the buyout to leave. And there's a number the school has to pay if they want to fire the coach. So it's all, how do you say, PK? Preordained when the contract is signed. So there you go. This is how the industry works. And it ain't changing.
I mean, it's been working that way for so long, so you're absolutely right. I mean, there's just no argument there.
Yak, are we a little late giving away Jazz tickets? You know the phrase better late than never? Apply it now. Jazz tickets that we were supposed to give away at 9:30 and then somehow got distracted and didn't do it. Here they are, 801-575-ZONE. And if you don't win now, 2 tickets to see the Jazz and the Rockets Friday night at the Delta Center. Jake and Ben are going to hook you up at 10:30 right here on the Zone.